what needs to be done. Handle business and then handle your emotions. So that's what happened. Handle business, finish my master's degree. After I got my master's degree in hand, then did the divorce. But I was
Mm.
on Steve's demon time too. So soon this divorce is final. I am back out on the market. You are Mr.
Come
Tuesday,
get me.
Thursday. You are Mr. Monday, Wednesday. As soon as the divorce is final,
Bus schedules, baby. Bus
there you
schedules.
go. Bus schedule, taxi schedule, whatever it is.
I'm on the bet. You who's coming in, who's coming out? Tell
There
me.
you go. There you go. As long as you know you're not staying. But
No, I
but then
appreciate
years
you. Go on. Hmm.
but years later, I'm currently married. I'm on my second marriage. I was
Mm.
still on that time, and my current husband is he's the one that keeps me calm and gets me off of demon time. He stuck it out. He's like, no, no. He stated what he wanted to do. He wanted to be exclusive. He wanted to marry again, and I was not on that path. As I told him, he caught me on a time when there was nobody else on roster. So he kind of mellowed me out. And I see a question: how did the babies handle it? My children, as I say, I was raised in a very different way. Um, Even though my ex-husband sent me an email to say he was leaving, I demanded that he speak to the children, that he tell the children what is going on, because I can color it a certain way. He needs to speak to his boys to say what's happening. He didn't, of course, do it very well. He just said, Daddy's leaving, but didn't quantify it. So I had to take that on and be very, you know, basically telling them what's going on. And they took it very well because I had to learn through therapy he was not only divorcing me or distancing from me, he was distancing from the children. So his absence wasn't going to be as felt as hard as it would have been if he was an involved parent, I should say.
Mm. Appreciate it. Okay. Thank you, Elsid. Thank you for sharing your story. We're gonna bring on V up, but we're gonna bring you back up again. I just want everyone to tell their story, and then we'll get our panel going as well. So thank you, Elsid, for being brave and sharing your story first of all. We appreciate that. Thank you. All right, let me get V up. V, what you saying? What you saying? Hey
Hey.
V, hi there,
Well,
man.
pretty good, pretty good.
Yeah.
So you want to know the story or a little bit of background?
Listen, we want to know the story. So tell us, baby, what's been going on? Tell us.
Well, I was with the person I was with for 21 years. We were married like 15. We pretty much, you might as well say, we grew up together. We met in school. Um, it was, I mean, it was kind of it was very Cosby Show esque. It was until it wasn't. I can admit I'm the one who ended it. The children took it. I think they took it in stride, but one of the things that shocked me was after everything was done. I mean, I think only one thing they missed because we moved from one real big house to, everybody split the assets and went to two smaller houses, and so they pretty much grew up in that house. So I think that's the only thing they really missed. But one of the things that surprised me was, oh, we were just waiting for it to happen, right? Because we didn't argue in front of children. Everybody, even to this day, children are always handled. They are always top priority, no matter how anybody feels. So pretty much they took it in stride. Um, Divorce is kind of like a death, but there is definitely life after it. So I mean, that's pretty much the story. We were together a really, really long time, and we brought it to the kids by. I think got some books from the library because I have different ages of
Hmm.
children. Yeah, I have different ages of children, and so the smallest one was the one we had to explain it to. He didn't want to tell them anything.
Mm.
He wanted everybody to just break out, and then everybody just. He was more of keep everything under wraps. So
Mhm.
it was really tough going through all that. But once everything was over, which the battle was kind of crazy, when everything was over, it felt like a big weight was lifted off of me. So I definitely felt free after. And just like El Cid said, boy, hit these streets. but when you were married, you want to hit the streets and really act up. But you're not like kind of. I watched the Cynthia interview. You're not emotionally available at all. So when you get out there, you're looking at people kind of crazy. You don't know who to trust, who not to trust, because when you went into the marriage, it was supposed to be forever, right? So it's kind of weird. And since I got into the marriage super young, I did not know how to maneuver the dating world. I think D asked, did you see a significant shift in your day-to-day? If I say 100% truth, because I was like one of those like really, 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 really active moms when we split everything, and he actually had to have them on certain days. It was lonely at first in the house, but then you realize, oh snap, it's a break. Right? So you kind of live it up and you get your rest. But yeah, I'm used to the house being very loud and kids walking around, so the quiet was very crazy. But I looked at something Edna said too. Dating is definitely different. I mean, not that I was out there because I was 19, but yeah, dating out here is scary. So, took my toe, put it out there. I was like, oh, it's definitely pee in this pool, and came right the heck back out. So I'm just chilling right now.
I appreciate it. Thank you, V. Thank you for sharing your story, V. Much appreciation. All right. Okay. Well, thank you. I'm gonna put you down and I'll put Key up. Kia!
Hey.
Hey, baby. The blue is popping. Eyes
Thank
looking
you.
glistening. Okay. Good time. I didn't see you for a long time. How you doing there, baby? Good.
Oh,
Yeah. You been all right?
I've been amazing.
That's what I like to hear. So, we're talking obviously about divorce, and we're talking obviously about people's stories and kind of, if there's life after divorce. And so I want to kind of, get your perspective, and maybe your reasoning. Ooh, is that your sneaking link, baby?
See, wait a minute. They try to call me.
That's a sneaky link. Say, shh.
Sorry, guys.
No, but yeah, we just want to start off by kind of like getting your story. What brought you to the point of obviously divorcing? What was it like? What was your thoughts? What was your feelings? Just give us a general overview of your situation in a sense.
So my situation was I married my first love. Well, one of my first loves, and we were friends. So I thought I was being strategic. So I was raised in the church, and basically in the church, you don't want to be caught fornicating. So I was like, okay, I'm going to make my parents proud, and I'll go ahead and get married. So 2003, I decided to get married, but I kind of like, thought I was doing the pros and cons. Which one should I marry? So evidently my choice really didn't work out too well. So it was one of those things where after I got married, I immediately knew that I made the wrong decision and I wanted out. Again, I was still young, and I tried to let him know that I didn't want to be married. So I even went as far as getting another apartment. I moved out like within like the first 2 months of the marriage. So I literally moved out, was like, okay, this is not working. I'm calling my mom and saying like, how do you get an annulment? What is it called? Like, how do you get out of this? So after, she talked me into staying, and other family members talked me into staying, and he, pleaded for me to stay, I stayed. But the problem was, you crush a man's ego, things will never be right. So, at the back of his head, he knew that he wasn't always the only option. So that also crushed his ego as well. So with that being said, when
Mm.
I decided to come back and be all in because my mom just talked me into it, then that's when he started acting a fool. And then my conscience was like, okay, just do right by him, make it right. Let him know that you chose him, that you could have chose this other person, but you're with him. But he never could like bounce back from that. So at that point, I allowed him to have the upper hand. So basically, I just went through a whole mess for 10 years until finally one day, I guess the grass was greener for him on the other side. And he found something else to occupy him. And he said that he didn't want to be married anymore. So at that point, I was like, no, we staying married. We in this. You done took all my young years. Now you want to be like, but I actually retired out because the new young
Right, you
lady,
got her baby.
she was my age when he met me. And when he met me, it was a girl that was younger. So he just likes a certain age. So I'm joking, but that's what it seemed like. But it was just one of those things. I was trying to make it work. I prayed to Jesus. My knees was bloody red, like the Mary Mary song. I was, like, this is my husband. We gonna make it work. But he just didn't want to make it work. So now I consider it a blessing because the things that I'm doing now, I would have never been able to do while I was married with him. So finally, when it finally hit me, he just did some stuff that I was just like, you know what, we can't bounce back from that. And that's when I had my wake up call and I was just like, you know what? You must forget who I was out here in these streets. You better ask somebody. My name's still good out in here in these city streets. Not being like that, but I forgot who I was, Kojo. So it was hard to get myself back. So now that I'm back, there's so many amazing things that has happened in my life. I would have never probably wrote my book. I probably would have never been out doing the things that I do. I would have probably never, been financially stable. A lot of things changed my life. So it was a blessing, Kojo. So that's it. Like,
I love that, man.
it was a blessing. And then, like I said, when he was seeing me now, he was stalking that IG and the Facebook. I'll be like,
Blah 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 blah. No, I appreciate you sharing that, Kay. I appreciate you, honestly. And you always bring laughter to me, so I appreciate that.
today.
No ways. No, listen, we're gonna have a real conversation today. So there's don't worry about it. So but I appreciate you sharing your experience as well. And as much as we are laughing and joking at the same time, it's real stuff that people have gone through. So I appreciate you sharing your
you take me down.
experience.
My famous quote is never lose yourself trying to find someone else. And that was what I, just said to myself over and over when it finally hit me. So, when you're in a relationship and you lose yourself and you're no longer yourself, never. Whoever you're with, you should never lose yourself.
Okay. Yeah, that's real. I appreciate it, Key. Thank you, Key. I'm gonna put it down. Master Yo, are you ready, brother? Our first brother of the night. You understand? So, Master Yo.
What's up, man? How's it going?
My Shaolin Master. How you doing, sir?
Is that a new nickname you got for me? What's going on?
Master Yo, yes, it is a new nickname for you, sir. Okay.
Oh, man. Hey, man, I'm happy to see you.
Good to see you too, bro. It's been a minute, so I'm happy to see you, bro. Always smiling when I see you, bro. Today we're talking obviously about life after divorce, but we kind of just kind of started off by asking people to kind of share a little bit of their experience, what took them to the point of divorce, why they decided to initiate it or why they decided to go through with it. What were their thoughts, what were their feelings, what was going on for them at the time, and then just kind of discussing a little bit as well about life after divorce and if it was beneficial even to divorce, if you want to call it that. And of course, if you want to add anything else to it, by all means, go for it. You have full scope to tell us the story how you want to tell us. I ain't gonna limit you. You know what I mean? So
yeah, for sure. And I was definitely watching in the background, so it gave me a pretty good idea. And this is awesome. So my story, I was married to someone for about a year. But we were together for about 3 years. So, within that timeline, I was just being a very African man, essentially looking at provision as a way of loving a woman. So I was pursuing the corporate America dream, which essentially led to a lot of distance between her and I emotionally. There were other things there that happened, infidelity on her end and things like that, which essentially led us to divorcing. Although we're trying to work it out and everything else, the trust was just gone at that point. And I would say one thing that I really thank God for that situation was that it really taught me how to love someone, because I was raised in a mindset that provision is enough. And it really opened me up to like learning new things about relationship and how to do it. So essentially, it gave me the opportunity to like step into a different version of myself as a man. It's kind of awkward being here without Kojo on. He better come back. But that's what I have for my story as far as life after that when I was divorced. I think for me, the tough part was building my social life again, because when you marry someone, essentially, you're kind of combining your social life together. You have the same friends. I mean, even when you're just dating, that happens, right? So for me, it was essentially difficult to like readjust because I'm not from America. So I had to find like new friends that were not necessarily connected to her, build new hobbies and things of that nature that essentially created a different version of me. And one quote, since we are bringing up quotes that essentially led us to becoming fully ourselves, essentially like for me, it was always adversity is always going to introduce a man to himself. So the adversity of me wanting to repair my marriage, fix my marriage, although there were infidelity and all that, essentially introduced myself to me, and I was able to grow in my faith and grow as a lover, I would say. But yeah, marriage is a beautiful thing whenever it's done right, and I'm very happy that I've gone through that. It was a painful experience, very very painful, but because I've learned so much from it, I'm glad that it happened, and I thank God every day for that. Somebody said, did you understand why she went looking for that attention? Yeah, I did understand, because I was traveling on Monday and I was coming home Saturday morning. So doing it for about 7 months. So I was literally like getting on a plane Monday morning and I was coming home Saturday morning. So we only had Saturday all day and then Sunday. And it really kind of like jog my memory about, okay, you working too hard. This woman over here is complaining that you're not around the house, and you just understanding that, okay, because you are growing in your career, that's what she essentially like should be thankful for. And I had to learn that, loving someone, especially here in America, providing or bringing the bacon home or in that sort of form, whatever you want to do is not enough. So, but by that time, there was a lot of infidelities and, adultery and things like that essentially, even me as a Christian man trying to reconcile and make things work, we could not get past that. Although I tried and we are good friends to this day. We don't talk, but if we see each other somewhere, we're not going to avoid each other. So yeah, I think she was just looking for that attention from day one, and I just kind of like did not see it coming. And then when I started working more, she was definitely like going after that. So yeah, definitely not enough time. What made it difficult for you to reconcile after until you couldn't get it out of your mind? No, it wasn't that. I think it was more her. She was at a point where she had enough. She had enough of me essentially like prioritizing my career over our marriage. And for me, it was more like a situation where I'm like, what do you mean you don't want to fix our marriage? You're the one who cheated, right? And then I realized that she was unhappy. She was unhappy for months. And I'm still, I was still trying to figure things out professionally, and she was unhappy and I didn't see it coming. What I would also say is like, when you are in a situation like marriage, sometimes we don't have check-ins or we don't have our blinders on or off. So it's always important to check in with your partner. But but yeah, I think where's Kojo?
I'm here, Captain. Don't
Oh,
worry
you
about
are. Let me
that.
answer,
Don't worry about that. I'm here.
let me answer this one last question. Man, you put me on the spot, bro. Okay. How did I meet my wife? Okay, so I'm from Gabon, so I'm not American, and she's American. I moved to Colorado back in 2013. I met her in 2015, and we met online. So we met on a dating sites. That's how we met. It wasn't for green card. At the time, I did not need that green card, and she's American. She didn't need it. We married for love. But like I said, I went into that marriage with a lot of like apprehensions based on where I was coming from. I had a dad who was working 3 jobs his whole life for almost 30 years. And it wasn't necessarily blue collar jobs, it was white collar jobs. So for me, a man was always supposed to be working. So if you are working, you're doing the right thing for your family. But what I did not learn is that working sometimes is not enough. So, but yeah. Thanks for
Appreciate you,
the
yo.
time, Joe.
No worries, no. I appreciate you. I'm gonna drop you down. But don't worry, don't go away. We'll drop you down. I know you got a time limit
Okay.
today, but I'm gonna drop you down with everyone else. But listen, I know I've got a few more people who are gonna come through, who are gonna share their stories as well. But I hope you guys are enjoying, at least enjoying and also understanding where people's perspectives are. Because today is not about judging anybody or, trying to to blame anybody, but rather more just to get a bit of understanding. I think these are also key conversations in terms of how to help us along the way of being able to learn, and I think some of the stories, the experiences that I've heard, it's interesting to hear people's perspective and how they particularly viewed, their particular situation. So this is interesting. So keep the questions coming. Keep the conversation flowing as well. So I appreciate you guys in the chat who are engaging and adding their 2 penny pence and asking questions. Okay. I think I've got 2 more people to come a little bit later, so I'll let them come in a second or two. I will bring up everyone else onto the panel just to ask a few questions. And then I'm sure the rest who are coming later on, they will have a chance to talk as well. So let me bring everybody else up on. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Lovely, Tony. All right, cool. Let me remove this. I don't need it anymore. All right, cool. So, thank you again, ladies and gents as well for sharing your experiences. I got a question. So my first question is like a one-word answer I need from everybody. So my question is one word that describes how you felt when you realized you were going to get a divorce. So one word that describes how you felt when you realized, this is wrong. I'm gonna get a divorce now. Like, you know what I mean? So one word from each individual person to kind of just encapsulate the first question we're going to start diving into, and then I'll give you time to expand on each of your answers as well. So Kay, I'm gonna start with you because blue's my favorite color. So Kay, talk to me. One word to describe that moment when you realize it's gonna be a divorce. One word.
Defeated.
Ooh. Defeated. Okay. Thank you, Key. I appreciate that. Yo, talk to me, Master Yo. One word to describe the feeling when you realized it's gonna be a divorce.
Hurt. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. V, one word for me.
Fear.
Appreciate it. El Cid?
Calm.
Okay. All right, cool. Different thoughts. I like that. Okay, cool. Let's start with Kay. Kay, talk to me. Your one word that you use to describe that feeling. Tell me why you chose that word.
Because I don't like to lose at anything in life. So that's like anything. Like I'm gonna try to figure it out. If I can't figure it out, I'm gonna be up in the middle of the night. My wheels on my bus gonna be still going around. Like what? So at that point, because I felt like I attempted, like okay, even though I was initially like this not for me, I don't know what I did, but once I was in it, I just was like, well, he should have said he didn't want to continue. If why did you chase me down? So after I put my all into it and did everything that I could to try to make the marriage work, it was like all this stuff I did, I felt defeated. It was just like I prayed. I had my grandma praying. I had my aunties praying. They probably was tired of me. I was listening to all the church songs. I was on the floor laying down crying, just like, Lord Jesus, you hear me. It's me again, standing in the need of prayer. But I felt defeated.
Appreciate it, Keith. Thank you. Yo, your one word that you chose. Why did you choose that word?
And when I share about my marriage, I really try my very best not to speak about my ex-wife in a bad way, because I do have care and understanding for what happened. But the reason why I use the word hurt was because, Kojo, you probably know this. As men, we like to fix things. We like to build. We like to build our life just the way we want it. And I think that, I mean, women as well, not necessarily saying it's just a man thing. But I would say we are more intentional about that. And I had done that. I thought I did. And I was just at a point where I was hurt, but because when I found out about what happened, I went out of the country to see my mom just to spend the holidays with her. And it was on my flight back from Paris. No, I was in Paris flying to Houston, and then I was going to go to Denver. But I was literally in the Paris airport, and I had opened up my Facebook for after a few weeks, and I had found out that my wife was dating somebody. So it was a situation where you are married with someone, but they're on Facebook in relationship with somebody else. So I think I was hurt because for me, I thought we had put enough care, love, and interest into one another to not necessarily go that route. So I think it was a lot of hurt that just went after that. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, yo. Appreciate you. V, your one word. Why did you choose that one word?
Well, like I said, since I was only with one person since I was 19 years old, I didn't know there was no other life that I knew. So you fear what's going to be on the other side. But you have to make a choice. Do you want to continue to live in your current state, or do you want to jump out there and just let the chips fall where they may, because what's on the other side may be better? I chose to jump, but before I did that jump, there was definitely a lot of fear that came along with that decision.
Thank you very much for that, V. I appreciate it. Elsid, go for it.
Hey, I chose calm because how I was raised, if you do stuff in heightened emotion, you won't be doing it correctly and how it needs to be. So like I said, my grandfather taught me, shelve the emotions for when it is safe and right to dive in there. But if I knew when I was scheduling the lawyer and going through a divorce, I needed to keep my wits about me. It's not just me, it's 2 kids, it's property, it's a whole lot of stuff that I need to stay calm for so I don't lose or miss out on something that I need to be protecting from this whole trial of a divorce.
I appreciate it. All right, cool. All right, let's get into some real conversation then. Okay, so this can go to anybody who feels to answer at the moment as well. So when it comes to obviously the divorce, I want to ask a question. When it comes to accountability, we love this word around this internet size. When it comes to accountability, what accountability did you personally take in your role in the demise of the relationship or the marriage? What part did you feel you played in the demise of the relationship? And this could be anybody who feels ready to answer that question. Yes, Key, go for it.
I took responsibility because I didn't want everyone to hate him because it was both of us. So again, that was the true act of God when you can, move past all the hurt. So even though I was a little salty at first, but that was the opportunity for me to get myself together. And I took accountability, like, okay, well, I could justify why you was one of my choices and I still married you, but I get the stuff that I did early on, where I moved out. I was just doing stupid stuff early on. And then I expected you to just be like, okay, we back in this thing. So, he could have, but again, I took my accountability knowing that I could have started off better. So, and there were some other things that I did, because I used to be, a hot mess. And I could be passive, sometimes. And, I know how to push certain buttons because, again, I knew him since I was 19. So I know how to push buttons without pushing buttons. So I did. I took accountability because I didn't want him to be labeled the bad guy.
I hear that. Okay. Yeah. And I also want to answer that question about what accountability they took in a divorce, in a role of the divorce. Yes, V, go for it.
Yeah. So, I don't know if it's because we were married for a really long time. You try to cover that person from looking bad. So at first I was taking it all. I was taking all the accountability. Then after a while, I knew what my part was. I think I dimmed my true self to be with that person. And once I hit a certain point where I'm like, I don't even know who I am anymore, I was like, ooh, it's my fault too, because I presented myself a certain way and said I could do certain things that genuinely were not me. So we both kind of put on a mask to each other, right? And then once the masks start falling off, you outgrow each other. You might not necessarily like what you see. You get to a point where you're like, okay, are you willing to work to make everybody stay? Are you going to stay where you are, or are you going to leave? And everybody was going to stay, but it was killing me. I had to go. So I take accountability for trying to be something that I was not in order to be with somebody that I chose to be with. So.
Love it. Go for it, Elsid. Yep.
I take accountability in the fact that we were both in college at the time, or in school at the time, and I was getting my master's. He was getting his a bachelor's in the medical field he was going into, and I was on autopilot for taking care of the kids, making sure my grades were good, going to work, making sure everything was handled. And we weren't doing like check-ins. The relationship kind of took a back burner because there's so much going on. So it was the heavy weight of work, school, kids, and we still need to function in a relationship. So that first step, as I said, was okay, awareness, and then go to therapy. But if the other partner, isn't participating, it isn't going to really work. But I kept up therapy myself because I knew divorce, I love my Alexa play, it's a battlefield. It can be. So I was kind of needing to get myself emotionally ready for that, phase. But I took accountability of, I did put a relationship to the side. Or I should say, it was really, really not a priority at the time.
Appreciate it, also. Thank you. Yo, you're the last one. Go for it.
Yeah, we got to do ladies first. So I didn't know how you did it last time, but before I give my response, I just wanted to say again to the ladies on here, taking accountability in what you guys have gone through. For me, it just shows a lot of like hope and love, and then I just wanted tell you guys again, us men, we appreciate you guys, because going through a divorce is not something that everybody goes through. Going through a divorce, it's like having somebody that you once loved out of your life, but they're still alive. How do you grieve somebody who's still alive and not dead? That's a process that if you have been married and love someone, you're only able to understand. And that doesn't necessarily mean that, that's for everybody. But I just wanted to, again, affirm you guys that, it's great to be able to hear your insight. But my answer is short, Kojo, because I started with that. It was the fact that I was a workaholic. I'm not kind of trying to be out here and act like I'm different now. I was married to my job. So once I had her, I gave her the ring. We got our place. We got, the wedding and everything else. In my mind, I was like, okay, let me just make sure that this woman is not complaining about any expenses around the house and everything else. So, and when you do that, you mismanage your marriage. And when you mismanaging something, you always end up losing it. So me as the leader of our marriage, I was really wrong by the way I, mismanage our relationship. Like Elsie had said, we were not doing check-ins. We were not necessarily having conversation to grow within each other. It was more about like what we were doing outside of our marriage. So it was not working as a team. And it was easy to get in that routine. And I'm saying this just one last thing, because somebody said something in the comments about that. It's easy to get in a routine when you are not arguing or there's no major things happening that makes you feel like you need to sit down. And the goal in my next marriage is making it sit down part of our relationship, because what we generally like to do is we get in with someone, everything is fine, it's calm around the house, but it's not because there is silence. That doesn't mean that there's not drama or pain. Silence doesn't mean healthy. So listen to that silence and then do some check-in with your spouse. That's very important. So yeah.
Thank you very much, Yo. I appreciate that. I appreciate you sharing that as well. So I want to even ask you a question, and that will obviously lead me to ask also the ladies a question as well. You said something really interesting, and this is probably specific more to the men. Or it could happen to women too, but this specific, I think, happens to men as well. The focus on work. Why was the focus on work so much for you? I wanna know that, because I guess maybe ladies might be able to identify some of the stuff they've seen that in their relationship. Maybe you can help that understanding. Why was there so much focus on work for you?
So from a very young age, I was raised that a man is supposed to work and take care of his family. That is something, hi Sean, that is something that I honestly, like, I haven't really unlearned, right? And it's not something that it is easier to unlearn. But I think that for us men, because we don't find our space around the house, when you are sitting around your house, if you don't have that space, it is very easy for you to think that your space belongs in the field. So that was the number one thing. The other thing too is our culture and society is all talking about what a man can provide always. I mean, when I moved out here in the US, like when you're talking about classic song, the women don't want no scrubs, right? So it's all about, we are wired, us men, to understand that provision should be your number one purpose in the relationship. And if you haven't really developed other skills or other assets that you can bring to your marriage, it is very tough to find yourself helpful elsewhere. And I think that was my case, and the case of some on the bench too. So yeah.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Yo. Any of the ladies want to respond to that? Just to if that resonates anything with you, go for V. And then Elsa, I see you after. Go.
Yeah, I always make the joke that I got a divorce because I wanted to finally be able to take a nap. Because I was working like really, really, really. Those who know what I do, I work a lot of crazy hours. I used to be on 12-hour shifts, doing all types of crazy stuff. I'm in a male-dominated field, so they don't really have sympathy for you for having children. You're just out there doing what you do. But I still had to do all the mom stuff too, because one of the things they used to say at work, they're like, if dad, this might offend some people, but that's what they used to say in my field. If daddy isn't home, he's expected to be a provider, so nobody really says anything. But if mom isn't at the house, there's a problem. Something is wrong. And that's genuinely how they felt. So you were wearing both hats, working super duper hard, and you felt like you weren't being supported and tired and exhausted. And you're like, well, if I'm doing all this, I might as well just be by myself. I'll be fine by myself. So that working thing and being married to your job, I was pretty married to my job because that just was the nature of my job. But trying to balance the motherhood with it too. So that's a part of that accountability as well. So
Appreciate V. Elsid?
Early on, I knew what I wanted in my career. I wanted my career to be at a certain level, so it required that I work. And I'm a lot different in that I knew I needed to get further education. I know I needed to put in extra hours of work to get where I needed to go. So putting in work and working constantly was like my first nature. So as I said, my ex-husband's field was in the medical field, but it was more conducive to if he had to change his schedule for the kids. So I knew, and I stated before we got married, that I was very career oriented. I had a goal, and I wasn't going to flinch from that.
Thank you, Elsid. Appreciate it. Yes, yeah, you want to add something? Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like,
Go
when
for
I'm
it.
talking about the fact that I was very focused on my work in my marriage, it doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, my ex-wife wasn't working or women are not necessarily like pursuing their career. I think that especially women of color in this country are very like they take that part of their life very seriously because, you know, the odds are already stacked against us as a Black family. So being a two-income household as a Black family is more beneficial than being one. And I think that's something Black women understood maybe about 30, 20 years before the Black man did. And that's another debate for another time. But essentially, like, now things are changing. And so I just wanted to say that, like, that like passion for work and putting your effort somewhere else is something that we all do. The only issue with us men is like we are so single focused sometimes that when that's our focus, we can literally walk by you in the kitchen and you have some booty shorts on and we don't even think about that because we got something. I promise you, V, like that's how I was. Like I'm telling you, I see you shaking your head, but that's how I was. Like I was so consumed with work that I did not even touch her for about a month. So that's my accountability part, right? I have to be transparent here. So for me, when I say like we take it to the other level, it's more about like thinking about things like from where I come from, it was more a mindset of I don't want this woman to have to work a day in her life as long as she's my wife, you know, and you know things didn't happen that way, but I just wanted to share that it's a very common thing for all of us.
Bro, I respect that, man. You know, it's not easy out here because, you know, and, to admit some of the things that we do sometimes. So don't worry, I'm with you and I'm hearing you, bro. A key, you didn't get to answer. I don't know if you wanted to. You don't have to in terms of.
Well, I'm an artist, and you know I'm sensitive about my, but I've never like been like that person that you know just takes corporate America so seriously because again I'm an artist. But the husband, he was more. I have to work if you want all these nice things. But I think it was more so guilt. So, you know, let me give you this handbag. Let me, you know, give you this. And these are the things that you want. And those are really not, I like those things, but those are not the things that I really wanted from him. But those were their excuses that I felt they were excuses.
Wow. Let me ask a question then to the ladies to kind of give a different perspective, because I think this is quite interesting, right? Because I think this is something that I think the men's panel we spoke about in terms of I think a few months ago we were talking about us working and the need to provide and the pressure that is on our neck. You know what I mean? The feeling that we feel, that weight upon our shoulders, and so maybe for the ladies, you can give us a perspective. Were you expecting your man to work? So let's say if your man did it, I don't know if you can kind of give us a perspective on this, but were you expecting the man to work so vigorously, like how Johan's talking about, wanting to be married to the career almost? Were you expecting that in a marriage? Were those expectations there before you arrived in a marriage? Were you aware that maybe your husband, okay, no, your husband's a work husband, but your real husband, were you at the time, were you aware of that kind of thought process that a man might be thinking, I got to work, and maybe it could alienate the relationship? I wanted to ask the ladies that, see if we can get a bit of an understanding in that as well. I don't know if anyone wants to take that, if anyone wants to feel like they can answer that question for us from the ladies' side of things. Yes, Elsid, go for it.
In my part of it, I knew I wanted to go in my career, and he had a goal too in his career. So I did expect him to work rigorously. He was in the medical field. I was expecting him to have 12, 14-hour shifts or so, so forth. So I knew what I was getting into. So it wasn't a lot of travel like Johan, but I knew he was going to be maybe absent on weekends because those were just the shifts that he had to take. But I expect you to work. I expect you to work and work well in your field, whatever your passion is. I just expect you to work and earn, because I'm not going to be the sole breadwinner. I'm sorry. That's not for me. Now, he did have to scale back when I needed time to, move on in my career. He did have to scale back and be more at home with the kids for a while. But we had a timeline. It wasn't going to be forever. It wasn't going to be for a long time. But again, with everything, I'm a straight shooter. We're going to sit, plan, talk, and write it out, like if it's a contract, so we're all clear on expectations.
Appreciate it, Elsid. Any other ladies want to take up this aspect? Okay, V, go for it. And Winter, I'll see you after. Go for V, and then I'll get Winter on.
Yes, I have a similar story to Elsid, except we had two totally different type of careers. So mine was like higher earning in the beginning, but his had a higher potential. So I did expect him to work most definitely, but knowing that I had more of a chance to earn higher in the beginning, I kind of gave, I don't want to say grace, but to finding yourself, entrepreneurship, different things. But now as an older woman, I would not give anybody that advice to do that, like at all. But yeah, I definitely expected him to work, and yeah, it did not work out that way for me. Just that's the most I can say about it. But yeah.
Thank you very much, V.
I think it should be a healthy
before you go, Key, I think I was going to say okay, Winter said you can. Okay, go for it, Key. Winter said you can go for it.
I'm sorry, because I was reading the comments. So let's be clear. I just, feel it should be a healthy balance. Not saying that I don't want my man to work, because you have to be a provider, because I shouldn't have to be stressed at night trying to figure out how we're gonna make it. So that is your role. Your role is to make sure I have shelter, that I am provided for. So the other things are added. Again, I'm not gonna leave my man out there hanging if I have it, because I have a good job. But his job is to be the main breadwinner. But again, there has to be a balance, because he shouldn't be working so much where there's no communication and we don't communicate anymore, and you just have these meaningless gift. No matter what type of house you have or what trips you're going, it's lonely when you're on a trip by yourself, because I would be on trips by myself with the family. Where's your husband at? Well, he's working. Well, you out with the girls. And you feel that emptiness. So it should be a healthy balance, because those things do not make you happy in the end. So when I was sitting in the house by myself after it was all said and done, I'm like, okay, I got nice things, but it don't mean anything.
I definitely think it depends on the type of position that a man has. I think whatever work a man does is gonna may or may not require more of him. I know in my situation, my ex played in the NFL, so we already are coming into the league with the expectation that we are pretty much single parents until the off season. So that's just the nature of the business. You figure it out and you manage it. But I do feel like you have to have communication on what a healthy work-life balance looks like. This whole men being provider conversation is very testy in the DMV, only because in DC, women are killing it corporately, being entrepreneurs. I mean, they make bank out here. And that's always a topic of discussion, because in a lot of ways, a lot of the women here out earn the men. But there are women who out earn men who still want the man to be the provider. And men outnumber us. Like I mean, not men outnumber us. Men have more options because there's more women than men here. So it's like either you compromise on what type of earner or what a provider looks like. Is it just a certain amount of contribution you're expecting from him? But there are women taking care of men out here. So it's difficult because I'm coming from a completely different scenario. And I will even be honest and say, even when I got remarried, I did not have to work. So it's just different. I think, yeah, career choices always are going to impact whether or not a man is busier. Setting those healthy expectations in the beginning, or even setting up a plan. I love the whole like sitting out and actually coming up with a strategy and game plan for how you want to navigate your work-life balance as a couple, because I could not imagine my man walking past this fine piece of something and not touching it. Like, what? I couldn't imagine.
Stressed.
I can't process that. So that means we need to figure out, we need to figure out how you can relax and not be so plugged into work to where me being scantily clad in the kitchen don't do nothing for you, because that is indicating a whole different problem if you ain't touching me for a month. So, yeah, I think it's tough. It's really tough because the nature of economics have changed these days. You know what I mean? But I would like to say, I feel like this is a strong topic of conversation in the Black community. I don't necessarily see this amongst my Caucasian counterparts. And I'm going to be honest, a lot of my Caucasian friends are degreed, could go out and make tons of money and still at home, being cute, going to the country club, playing tennis, and their husbands are the breadwinners. However, the exchange is that their husbands do work pretty much all of the time. And I think I remember a quote that says a successful man is a busy man. So I think there are some sacrifices that you have to make when it comes to a man, his ability to be successful and provide the way you want him to. But I just think if you're going to make the marriage work, you're going to have to communicate and carve out what a healthy work-life balance looks like for your family. Because I know what it's like to be a single parent with a working spouse, and that I was stressed out. Like, I felt like I had worked 3 jobs by the time he got home, and I was at home all day with our kids. So that's my thoughts.
Interesting. I like where the convo is starting to go. Okay, because obviously it was mentioned in Winter's thing. And the reason I want to tackle it is because, again, I believe that you're not an exception. I when I say not an exception, I mean in terms of when work gets into, when I was studying about how men react to work and having to provide. When I was studying a little bit around it, I didn't do too deep. This is not abnormal, because the focus becomes about provision and the value begins to be placed on providing, right? Because even Kay just kind of said it. Your role is to what? Provide. Her role is not to provide. So if she doesn't provide, that's not what the pressure is. The pressure is whoever's role it is, essentially, right? So I want to get maybe some understanding so that other people who are also in relationships or in marriage, who are in divorce, maybe this can give a bit more understanding because it was you who brought it up. So because you were tapping the ass for a month. So we need to know what was going through your head, what's going on in your mind that you found yourself in that situation so that we can get a bit of understanding in that place.
Yeah. And Winter, what you said was really good because I just wanted to say that mindset is very based on DC, right? And whenever you move out of the country, you go elsewhere, it changes completely. And I'm aware of that. I think for me in that situation, the reason why I was kind of like, I don't want to say checked out, but I had my blinders on because for me at that moment, I was doing something that she always wanted. So, long story short, the reason why I was out of the house 4 to 5 days a week and traveling to Utah is because we were working on this huge project with those, investor in real estate. And essentially, I was leading the sale, and then I was essentially signing a contract or an opportunity where I could have essentially gained, equity within what we were building. So for me, I was excited because I had already planned out, like, let's say the next house we were going to get, the house and everything else. Like I was building the life that she always wanted me to give her. So I felt like I was doing the right thing. And then you just get very exhausted jumping in and out the plane. For those of you that had that experience, it's not fun when you have to do it every week, and getting out the plane, getting in the car, driving home for another 45 minutes. When you get home, and also honestly, like I would say maybe to, connect that with what I'm saying, because, maybe Sean cannot relate to what I'm saying, but I also was struggling at the time with alcohol. So essentially it was work, and I had my bottle of whiskey in the room waiting for me by the time I got to the hotel, and then going back to work the next day. So when I come home, I'm just thinking about work, whatever she needs, or, and then going back to it. So I think that not having that balance that Winter mentioned was definitely missing in my mindset as a husband to lead. So I just thought doing the right thing is going to be the right thing. And we did not have that balance where we could have that conversation. Now, I do have a question. I know I'm getting, some heat coming down on me right now. And you and Elsie mentioned something a lot about women being the breadwinner and men providing. And for me, in all this is what I wanted to ask you guys is the goal making as much money as possible for the family, or is the goal building a life that we all enjoy? Because my answer to that is, if my wife is making more money than I am in the season of my life right now, I'm okay with structuring my life around the most earning opportunity that we have so we can earn the best. What I'm trying to say by that is, Winter, your husband was in the NFL. At that moment, if you essentially were in a career that was making more money than him, would he have become a single parent? And would that be okay? Within our community, for Black women in DC, or LC, or everybody else on the panel. That's another thing that I'm throwing back out there, because I know right now we're talking about money and earning and breadwinner and everything else. But what happened when the roles are reversed, like my situation, but the other way around? How does that look like? And here I rest my plane. I land my plane.
He still can't get it right. I love it. He's talking to ladies, so whichever lady wants to pick it up, by all means, pick it up. Elsie, go for it.
For me, I'm in the finance world, in the accounting world, so I need like definitions. So for each person, what does provider look like? For me, because of where my career I wanted to head, I wanted a partner who was willing to, at some time in his life, be okay with kind of sitting on the bench while I move forward. So he would still provide, but will he be okay being on a bench while I'm in the starting lineup and doing what needs to be done while on the bench for the family? Because I'm doing this for the family, and maybe him on the bench being what's best for the family. So my first husband, when my career started to skyrocket, wasn't comfortable on the bench anymore, even though it was told to him up front. Up front. I believe in being clear. You can't say you didn't know. My current husband, he's okay with being on the bench because he knows what he's doing is essential. It's not minimalistic. He's not minimized. What he's doing is essential. So it's all about the man and basically what he's comfortable with, and the woman in the relationship, what she needs and is comfortable with. I'm just, as Koja like to say, masculine energy. I know where my career I wanted to go. I can compromise. I can slow down. I have at times when it was best. But for each person, they need to define what provider is and what their marriage and relationship will look like for them.
Okay, before anyone answers, so Elle said the question might be asked, and just want to so you can get perspective. Someone might ask, how did you treat the man on the bench the first time round? Were you able to respect him being on the bench, or was he, how did you look at him as him being on the bench?
Well, first I let him shine first, because I don't know how you will feel being on the bench. I have to be aware that you may not feel good being on the bench. So in the education part, I let him have a year head start of me. But we talked about it. You got a year, then I'm tapping in. I gave you a year and 6 months. Then I'm tapping in, and it's off to the races. And we still have discussions. This is what it looks like. Are you still good? Are you still good? And we keep on moving and keep on pushing. But I did not minimalize him. I didn't look at him any different. I was always conscious, and my grandfather always made me aware. Don't ever make your partner feel less than. Don't ever make your partner, even if they're coming with, half a sandwich, it's still providing something, and appreciate it and show them that you appreciate what they're doing. Don't accept mediocre, but still appreciate them and what they're providing. But I know where you were trying to take me there, Kojo.
Yeah, just wanted to be aware, because someone might ask that question, he's on a bench, and someone might ask, was he treated well on the bench? V, you said you had a you said you was had a similar dynamic where you are the main, if you want to call it, breadwinner. You earned more. Talk to us a little bit about that dynamic in your instance as well, and what that like for yourself.
So like I said, based on what I did for a living, I was used to being, I guess people want to call it masculine. But I turned that off when I went home. It was kind of a balance where you're the breadwinner, but because in Christian, doctrine, the woman is the submissive and the man is the head of the house, and so trying to do all that at the same time got kind of tough because he acted like he was okay being on the bench. And it was cool for a long time until it wasn't. It was not cool anymore. And then he would try to exert the dominance, or, basically try to put forward I guess it was his masculinity. I don't know. But I feel like he did not feel like he was living up to the level that he should have been living or how he wanted to live. So it was good in the beginning. Everybody was all good until it wasn't. I was even basically I waited for him to finish school and everything. Like I said, we had two totally different career paths. Mine just so happened to go faster than his. And then he decided he wanted to do entrepreneurship. So he was still trying to figure out what he wanted to do. Mine was the more steady provision or income, but I never made him feel that way. Everything was together. Everything got put in the same pot. It was like, no, it was never, it's my money, our money. It was always everything together. So, but like I said, it was good until it wasn't. And I do think it was tied to a lot of men tie their masculinity to their job. And because I think he wasn't feeling as successful as he should have been, it caused problems, big problems. And I was progressing steadily, just moving up. So I think it kind of became a competition to me.
Yes, Kay, go for it.
So we can get into, at that point, prenups, because in my marriage, I was the main breadwinner. And at this big age, I would never do that again. Saying that, because at the end of the day, when you look good on paper, and that you like not good, I wasn't good at hiding stuff. You know how people started moving stuff. And so at the end of the day, we just gonna sit this thing out until, you know, you not mad or you don't do nothing shady, because, you know, people talk to their lawyers, they talk to their parents or different people and get them ideals. So I was just like, I didn't want to take a L. So, you know, I felt like I built this person up, because in the beginning I knew that he had potential. I built him up. I'm not salty, because again, it's a blessing that he's not in my life anymore. But again, you know, I'm like, okay, I was there when you didn't have anything, and now you think you got it together. Now you want to say you don't want to be here. Okay, I get it. But at the end of the day, that was my thing. Making more. I get what Winter said, that, you know, women are making, you know, money, but it was just a hard pill for me to swallow. Like, I had to pay for the divorce. Like, I was like, I didn't even asked for this. Like, sir, are you serious? So from top to bottom, I paid for that, and I wasn't the one who walked away. I just paid for it just to, you know, call it, you know, quits and finish it. But so never again. I mean, I just want us to be somewhat, you know, I just want him to be in control, or have, you know, better good with his finances. You know, we got to live in a, you know, house that's not as expensive. I just want him to take care of that. I don't want to be stressed.
Interesting. Okay. Yes, Winter, go for it.
So to answer, is it Yohan? Is that right? Okay. So to answer his question, is it important to be provided for or to have a good quality of life? I think for me personally, the goal is to have a good quality of life. I love the way that Tabitha Brown and her husband have moved. When she became successful, she retired him, because the goal wasn't to have him in the position of being a provider anymore. It was the fact that, hey, you supported me until my dreams came true. Now I make enough money, baby, go ahead and retire. I think ultimately that would be an incredible thing to transpire. I think the difference is his loyalty. You haven't seen where he left her, you know, all of a sudden, because, you know, they've been through the trenches at this point. I think they've been married for 25 plus years. And so I think, especially in the industry that I'm in, being in media and entertainment, and right now I'm in a sweet spot. My career is starting to really grow and take off. My challenge with dating right now in the space that I'm in is vetting motives and making sure that people are around for the right reason, because I believe that I would follow suit. I've always essentially patterned my entertainment and media career really off of Oprah. And I've always said I want to be baby Oprah, but I'm learning more and more. It's difficult to find a Stedman, because people just are not as loyal as they used to be. So I think ultimately the goal would be to have a quality of life and a good home life. And as long as our family is good, I'm good. But I think with the dating pool, with as much P in it that it has, vetting these motives and, you know, sincere aspirations. And I think, is it Kia? I want to get everyone's name right. Kia Simone. I think too, that's a challenge, because I had to pay for my last divorce, and I battled him trying to get rights that would benefit him later. Like, he saw so much potential in where I was going. He fought me tooth and nail to try to hang tight on it. Thank God for good attorneys. But it's scary when you are typically the higher earner, you know, and I wasn't during our marriage. That's the crazy part. I wasn't even the higher earner. He was banking off of my potential, which I mean, it's a compliment, I suppose, that he saw so much potential. But I think it's just scary. I'm not against prenups just because of what I went through in my last situation, and that really scared me. But also too, I like being the feminine, and in every situation I've been married in, the man has made way more than I have, and I like it. I try to give men that make all sorts of incomes chances, but I'm going to be honest, that whole competitive nature, where if he felt like, you know, I don't know if he was insecure about making less than me, that competition was a real thing. I'm just like, at this point, I think if I settle down again, I may just be a sugar baby, because I just get wore out by feeling like I need to compete with my man, when I feel like if we're in this as a partnership, we're both winning if I'm winning. It's not me, you know, trying to assert my masculinity. I don't have a masculine bone in my body, but it's just hard. So anyway, long story short, goal is to have a quality of life where we're both good. If my career took off, I would hope that he would be the type of man that would be okay with that, and just be like, my baby out there winning for us both. And hopefully I can Tabitha Brown my man and retire him if I'm still making more money. Because this baby Oprah come through, my husband is not going to need to work unless he just wants to keep busy. That's just, yeah. But who that man shall be, God only knows, because it is difficult.
I hear you, Winter. And listen, I'm willing to supply myself. Listen, I want to be retired. So if you want to retire me, listen, I ain't gonna hold you. I'm here for the encouragements. Okay. But thank you for that, Winter. Yo, you said you had a question. You wanted to ask a question. What was the question you wanted to ask?
The question I wanted to ask, and I think El Cid mentioned the bench. She came up with that term. And on this panel, we are now letting everybody off the hook, since you guys did not let me off the hook with my comments about being a workaholic. So I won't let her off the hook with the bench comment. But before I introduce that question, I just wanted to say, Winter, with what you said, she received backlash from Wendy Williams, because Wendy Williams' husband was terrible for her for 20 plus years. So now here you have two Black women, high earning, in the public eye. One has a different experience with one terrible Black man, in our opinion, and the other one loves a Black man because he was a police officer for LAPD for 15 years and devoted to her. So I just wanted to say that sometime doing whatever works best for you is generally the best way to do it, and not do it like other people do. And I love the example that you use. But El Cid, I wanted you to define what the bench is.
Okay, Yohan. For me, the bench is, you're not out there working as much as you used to. Like for me, in my first marriage, for our schedules, I did not have a flexible schedule. So he had a flexible schedule in the medical field to change his shifts. We did not want our second son to be in daycare until he was a certain age. So since you have the flexible schedule, then your schedule adjusted to be able to be home with the infant for the time that we wanted him to be not in daycare. So for me, the bench is just, you're not really going fast and forward in your career. You may be doing what is best for the kids in the home at the time. Now, where I was on the bench when he started his college career to further it, I took care of the kids in the home. So he had the time to study. He had the time to do his essays, whatever he needed to do. He had practicals. I had to calm my heels in my career and not move forward so that he had the time and space he needed. That's what I mean by the bench. I mean, it's like you just kind of pump your brakes for a little bit, and the other person is on their path and you're supporting them. Don't minimize the players that come off the bench. Some players come off the bench and change the whole trajectory of the game. But sometimes the bench is best. I was a Spurs fan, those bench players were sometimes better than the starting lineup. But for me, the bench is that you're just at rest for a bit and just doing what the family needs for you to do, and maybe not what your career demands. Does that satisfy the question?
Yeah, so basically it's just taking the back seats and prioritizing one person's goals over the other.
Right.
Essentially, I can see it definitely working when you got kids, but with marriages that don't have children, I don't know. But yeah, I get it now, and I hope that everybody does too.
You trying to put me in the hot seat? You trying to get off of?
No. We off the seat now. I got the definition. I hope that everybody does too. So I just yeah.
Listen, I hear you on that one. So obviously we have 3 new people who haven't told us their stories. So I'm gonna get them just to quickly tell their stories individually, or their experience of having gone through divorce, and we'll reset the conversation once again. Trey Mack, you have a time limit. Specifically, you have a time limit. Everyone else does, but you have a time limit. Because if I don't, you go and take us to Revelations. So you got a time limit on yours. All right. I'm gonna let you go first, in fact. So Trey, we just want to hear your story. We talked about what I asked the ladies and the gents earlier on was just kind of just give us a bit of an overview in terms of how you got to a place where you divorced, what was on your mind, what were you feeling, what you're thinking, and I guess a little bit about life after the divorce and how you kind of coped in a sense. So we'd love to hear your side, Trey. Trey loves to give us a good story, so make sure you buckle up.
Good evening, y'all. Good evening. Key, you was laughing way too hard. If I just have to start saying that, you laughing way too hard. But we're gonna come back to that. Real quick, I was married for about 5 or 6 years. Been divorced now for going on 8 years. So now I've been divorced longer than I've been married, and that's been an interesting thought with feelings behind it. But what led to our divorce, honestly, was how I would put it, a breakdown in communication, a complete breakdown. We were not communicating, we weren't talking, we weren't saying things that needed to be said. Ended up sleeping in separate bedrooms. It was just bad, and there was a lot of outside forces that was living in the house with us that contributed to the divorce, if you put it like that. So it quickly turned into exercise. You try to talk to someone, they don't want to discuss it, they don't want to deal with you. Then she would try to talk to me, and then I wasn't feeling it. Like, I don't want to deal with it right now. So it just causes an impasse and a distance between one another, to the point you start asking your questions. Why am I here? Why am I doing this? I'm not happy. I know she's not happy. And it finally came to a head one evening when we sat down and had a very frank discussion, and we both agreed that it was leading to a divorce. And for the most part, our divorce was very amicable. It took a little while because we had decided to share custody of our son, and because of the state I live in, Georgia, whatever, they actually sent us through some hula hoops just to get that done. Our divorce could have been very quick and very fast, but we had to spend like a whole year in co-parenting counseling just for our divorce to get finalized. But that's pretty much it. It's just a complete breakdown of communication. There's definitely could have been things on both sides that could have staved it from happening, but it didn't. We're in a good place now. We discuss things. We're good with each other, especially when it comes to our son. So I'm happy for that. We're in a much better place now than we were when we were married. If I have to give a criticism for myself, the circumstances of how we got married, we probably shouldn't have got married. We probably should have waited a little bit. But we decided to go forward with it, and things led to what it led. So that's pretty much it. Short and sweet. everybody come back now. Everybody come back.
Thank you, Trey. I appreciate you, Cap. God bless you. All right, let me get a Winter on. Winter, I'm gonna get you to share your story as well, and I'm gonna put you front street, girl. Okay. So let me remove him from solo view. All right, Winter. You know, you can start when you want to start, and let me put you on front street, girl.
Oh goodness, do we have to be spotlighted? Well, I will say my first marriage, I was married for 15 years. We have 4 children from that marriage. We got married at 19. And that marriage ended due to infidelity. Not just infidelity, but he also had 2 children outside of our marriage while we were married. And so after years of therapy and trying to see if we could work through it, it did not work. And so I filed for divorce and moved on. About 5 years, 6 years after that marriage, I remarried again. And if you guys watch season 1 of Love and Marriage DC, you learned that that marriage did not last a year due to my finding out that he was being accused of embezzling millions of dollars from his company. And it was like Pandora's box of uncovering all the lies. And so once again, I found myself filing for a divorce. And now I am single in these streets, dating and enjoying my life. I believe all things happen for a reason. And I'm just grateful that I made it out of both situations with my mental still intact. I'm a firm believer in therapy plus Jesus. Being raised in the church, we cannot pray away everything. We need support. We need a good village, and we need the right therapist. And so thankfully, due to the right therapist, I've been able to really navigate and bounce back after each situation better than ever. And so I'm in my prime. I'm loving life right now. I have 2 adult children and 2 more that are on their way out. And so I don't know, I'm in a really good space, but I'll keep mine short and sweet because you literally can go watch the second demise on Love and Marriage DC season 1.
Thank you very much, Winter. Appreciate you. All right. Let's get everybody back now as well. All right, Sean. You know, I know I haven't heard you speak since you got here, but we'd love to hear your experience. And you know, tell us a little bit about what happened for you in terms of you going through your divorce, etc., etc.
So most people know a little bit of my story just from, you know, me being on the channel for the last 2 years. But, you know, I will say that, you know, one, the history, we were married for almost 5 years, together for approximately 7 in total. And I think that one of the things that ultimately led to our divorce was us just wanting some very different things. And, you know, we went into the marriage with one expectation and kind of got towards the tail end with some different expectations. One of those really being children, and me wanting children, her being previously married and having kids. Things kind of evolved and devolved to her changing her mind. So, you know, we just had to make some very serious decisions together in terms of how our future was going to look. Very difficult decision to get there because the love, it wasn't for lack of love. It wasn't for, you know, some major upset, just differences in what we saw forever looking like. And, you know, we just had to make those choices. So we did it. And, you know, for me, the most challenging part about my divorce was that it transpired during the pandemic. So when you're kind of trying to get your feet underneath you and start again, it's during a period where you're supposed to be socially distant. So made for some challenges there. Officially, I'll be divorced for about a year now, but we've been separated for the last 2 years.
Thank you very much for Sean. Thank you. Now, Winter says she got a question for you, sir. So she wants to know, you know, And this actually is a really good question, because I think it can help other people too. Because again, someone else might be out there who might be going through something similar to you, Sean, that I never thought would happen, but it does happen to people. People do change their mind. So, you know, when to go for it, you want to ask that question.
Yeah, I was texting him in our side chat because I really want to understand the thought process behind a wife retiring her husband if she's now the main breadwinner, and Sean saying, hey, she doesn't have to announce it, just do it. And so I'm like, well, she means no harm. It really is for the benefit of the family. Why is the language around retiring your husband such a big to do? I just want to understand, because I feel like it's not going to be the same for everyone, and everyone's not going to, you know, share the same thoughts about it. But I'm curious to hear, because you feel very strongly about this. So I want to understand why, especially if she's respectful and completely has no ill intentions or disrespect by, you know, saying, hey, babe, you don't have to work your full-time job. You can pursue your dreams. And, you know, I got us.
Yeah, I think one, when it happens in the man-woman dynamic, men don't say they're retiring their woman, right? The respect is you took care of house and home, and maybe if you had a job or you didn't have a job or whatever was transpiring, it just becomes. And I think when you especially take it on a public platform, because it is the idea of the role reversal, with a woman being the primary provider, then it just makes it for public fodder and for people to talk about. And this is exactly what happened. It became something for people to talk about with this whole Tab and Chance situation, where it could have just simply been something that they did and none of us had to know, but it became known to us. Now, listen, as long as they're good in their marriage, then that works for them. For me, I don't want somebody retiring me. I feel like when I'm ready to retire, I will. And I don't want anybody to say like, oh, I retired you. No, I don't need that. If we have a plan as a family to retire together, then that's what we're going to do, right? So you may retire before me. I may retire before you. I don't feel like the public announcement, is needed. And I also think, listen, it comes with a little bit of hubris on both sides. So when a woman is saying it, oh, I retired him, right? And then a man says what he's doing, or to be on the receiving end of that, yeah, it does sting a little bit, because as a man, trust me, most men don't want to be benched. Most men don't want to be retired. Will some accept it? Will some do it? Sure. But most don't. And most have a bit of, of a challenge accepting that notion of being able to do it, which is why you don't see it happening very often. So my thoughts.
So then should men complain when women, because I don't, in some ways I don't disagree, because I also feel like this is where you get the challenge of women making more than men and women getting pushback from those men for him to assert his masculinity or dominance in the relationship. So then should women be faulted for primarily seeking men who earn more than them to avoid this discussion or contention? Because I feel like, just on the outside looking in, to me, I would say it was ego, or pride, as in not wanting your wife to. Now, I feel like they probably had an agreement. I don't feel, and I'm just guessing, I'm not in their bedroom, but I don't feel like the agreement wasn't mutual. They do this podcast together, so I'm sure the discussion of it was agreed upon. So this was an agreement to make it public. So if there's an agreement, of course they had to weigh the pros and cons of people agreeing or disagreeing with it, but collectively still made a decision to publicly talk about it. So do you feel like that's an ego thing, a male ego thing, to not wanting to be retired or discussing it, that it happened? Like, I'm just trying to understand, not that I have a dog in this fight either way. I feel like you do what works for you and your household, but just trying to understand. And then should women be faulted with saying, hey, I don't want to have this contention in my house over my man feeling emasculated because I make more? I would just prefer to find someone who makes more than me so he can just have his place and we ain't got no problems.
Well, you just said it. I think you answered your own question, right? Because your preference is to be with a man that makes more than you. And I think that is the general sentiment. Again, like I said, there's an exception for every rule. And some people are fine with a different type of dynamic and they make it work. However, just speaking en masse and from a general perspective, most men don't want to be retired, right? They're just not. No man is going to feel good with the way that sounds, feels, because yes, do we have an ego? But that ego is designed for a reason, because as men, that's what we were designed to do. We were designed to take care. We were designed to be the ones that are taking care of certain needs innately within us. That's a skill set that's there. Right now, have women evolved and adapted to do more and take on more? 100%. And many have done a phenomenal job at being providers. However, that can't take away from the fact that generally as men, that is just how we operate and that is how most men move. And I think that, look, if her and Chance made an agreement, that's great for them. And like I said, if it works for them, it works. But I would say in a lot of these situations, it works until it doesn't, right? Because we see things like this happen. People have agreements, right? And then 2, 3, 4, 5 years, 6 years down the line, it sows the seed of discord in the relationship, because those words matter. Because as much as you think you don't treat your man differently, you do, because it's very different. It's very difficult to switch roles and just have a man be in a less dominant position and be taken care of by his wife. It is a very difficult position to be in. Now, do couples go through it in seasons? But for that to be the majority situation in a relationship, it's very difficult. And that's why you don't see a lot of it happening, or you don't see a lot of it happening successfully.
And if I can also add something about that is context is very important with their situation also, because he worked as a police officer. They moved from the east side to LA, and he took a job that was going to offer them stability, which was offering essentially like a pension when he's going to retire and a few other things. So it was a little bit more about the reason why they also did the video was to inspire Black couples who essentially are with people who are dreamers and people who are more practical. And generally, like people who are more practical about lives are men, and people that dream essentially are more women, or vice versa, depending on what it is. So I just wanted to say, like, you know, in all what you guys are both saying, I can definitely agree with Sean as far as men ego there. And then I understand what Winter is saying about, like, you know, so if we got it, like, what's the big deal if we share about that? But in her situation, as an influencer or actress or whatever the title is now, I think it was inspiring other people that it is possible in a marriage that if somebody's sitting on the bench and following their dreams, and the other person essentially is like, you know, creating that stability, the person on the bench can then come out the bench and take the game over, just like Sid said.
So would you want that to happen? Would you want to be retired? Would you want your woman to retire you? I love what you did there. You did a great breakdown, and it was very nice summary. Very, very nice. But would you want to be retired? That's what you're asking.
To be honest with you, I don't think I can be around my house and not work, because I've been working since I was 14. So I don't think it's like something that would come natural to me and be like, I don't want to do something. And then even him in this case, he started the whole basketball camp nonprofit in South LA. So he's not home just sitting around. So I think the question, you know, to answer your question straight up, I think I would, because as long as we are building the life that we agreed upon, then I'm okay with that, right? I have aspirations that are outside and producing mortgages every day, right? I want to impact other people. And if I'm married to somebody who's giving me the freedom to not think about how much volume I can produce so I can maintain the lifestyle of my family, then I'm going to pursue those dreams because she's bringing that level of stability. Now, don't call me that, or don't say that I'm on a bench now, because, you know, I'm doing something, right? I won't take that word around. But yeah, I don't think it will happen for me, no, because I feel like I'm always going to be doing something. That's just the way I am, but I don't know. Yeah, I'm just speaking for myself, I guess.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Just Trey, would you want your woman to retire you? Would you be okay with your wife, not as a woman, a wife, retiring you? Come on, the long haul's be dealing it, brother. Think about it.
Listen, man, the more progressive mindset of my mind, it wants to say yes, but I don't know if I can do it. I'm kind of like Johan. I've been working since I was a teenager. It's, you know, it's part of me. It's what I do. I don't, even if I was a millionaire, I don't think I could just sit back on my laurels and just, yeah, I'm on the bench. But I don't know. And it coming from a wife, you know what? With us, I think it's the issue of the way it was said. Oh, I'm going to retire my husband. I remember when I first heard it, I went, wait, so what does that mean exactly? I'm not understanding what does this mean. You're going to retire your husband. And I saw his face. He was cool with it, but he was kind of, okay. All right. You know, he's still working, you know, because he's that type of guy. He's going to keep working. But yeah, it came off. It's just a flex. It was sounded like to me. Okay, this is just a flex. You know, she's not really retiring him. I don't think he want to be retired. It's just a flex. Make you look good, baby. Go on ahead. Whatever. But I don't think I could do it. I don't.
So is it a no?
Yeah, it's a no. It's a no.
You did all that tap dancing. Yes or no? Negro.
I ain't doing it, he said. In other words.
It's a no. And I think it's nice. And I think we love these stories, right? Because they give us hope for, you know, things eternal, right? Hope springs eternal. But listen, hope is not a strategy. We need to be based in reality. And sometimes you just need to understand, like, is it an anomaly? Does it happen? Sure. But in the real world, the average guy doesn't want it, because it's going to come with some things. It's very hard for human beings. As human beings, we're innately selfish, right? It's very hard for someone to just distinguish, I retire them, but you have to qualify it after, because it's all the questions that come out. It had to be qualified. Oh, well, he worked for 25 years. Oh, well, he was a police officer. Oh, well, all these things have to be filled in because it's not the norm. Now, again, I hope nothing but an eternity of happiness for the both of them. But what I'm saying is, for me and mine, that wouldn't work because I don't like the way it feels. And I think that one thing also from my history in being married, right? And I think a lot of us can attest to this too. It starts with the small things. And in a lot of instances, it's the small thing that grows into the bigger thing, right? Johan, you even mentioned it, right? In terms of looking at your wife and not even necessarily desiring her in that moment. But that you didn't just wake up one day and that happened. It started small and it grew to bigger. So if there's resentment that starts in your marriage, or, you realize that you two are not on the same page, like in my case, I didn't just wake up and was like, oh, shucks, we decided that, we're on a different page and she wants kids and I didn't. It wasn't or vice versa. I wanted kids and she didn't. It was an evolution. So it all starts from somewhere. So for me, like the way my mind works, I always root cause. And if I can root cause and proactively prevent an issue, then I'm going to do that. Because I know for me and the way my mind works, hearing those words, knowing what could potentially come from that treatment afterwards, I don't want it.
Okay, so the boys have said no. They said no. This one made it clear.
Okay.
I don't know if he's going next to tell his story or if he's already told it, but You are like the second or third guy I've talked to in the last month that has gotten divorced over the wife not wanting kids, and that led to the reason of the marriage not going the distance. How does that happen?
That's a good
Like, was
question.
that a discussion initially? Like, I mean, if you don't mind answering, but you are literally like the third guy that I know that's gotten a divorce over the wife not wanting to have any more kids, or just she didn't want kids at all.
Good
So,
question.
Yeah, no, it was an evolution. Just like I said, we started out on the very same page. I'm a very calculated, thought out person, so I definitely would not have entered into marriage, without the understanding that we're going to have kids. For me, that is, one of the sole and greatest purposes of being married is creating a family together and, a generation to, continue. So, yeah, no, it just evolved, right? And without compromising my ex-wife, who, today we are really good friends. I don't, want to go too deep into it, but yeah, it definitely did evolve into that. It wasn't like, today kids, tomorrow no kids. It was an evolution. And I could respect her for the decisions that she came to, but at the end of the day, I couldn't be happy in that dynamic, right? So, and then what comes from that? Because can you still truly love someone and not really be fulfilled? And for some people, it's something else. For me, it was having a family and having kids of my own. As much as I love my stepkids, and still do, I wanted to have my own imprint. I wanted to have my own children. So yeah, no, it's a real thing, and I've heard of it. Not just, it doesn't feel foreign to me. Initially, when I was going through it, I was like trying to wrap my head around it. But it is a real thing. And listen, if I'm going to be honest, women are the bearers of children, right? So there is a lot that can come with that. So I had to understand that too, right? You're in a life and death situation when you go through childbirth. So entering into it, it has to be something that you're fully invested in.
Appreciate it, Sean. El said you wanted to contribute to a previous conversation. Go for it.
Yeah, the previous conversation on the retirement issue.
Go for it.
My grandfather always say you don't just retire, you retire to something. So I think that's why my mind is on something different. It's like you don't have to work, you don't have to go and punch a clock, but you are pursuing a path that you wish to pursue at your leisure. So that's why I don't take the retirement comment really that harshly. But then again, I'm not the man being retired. But it's like you can retire, meaning choose the lifestyle you wish to pursue.
Thank you, Sid. Yeah, I mean, listen, this conversation is interesting. I think it's a great conversation. I think, if you want to retire somebody, listen, I think the wording is very important. Maybe she should never use word retiring him, because he's not retiring. You know what I mean? She's not retiring him. He's not retired. He went to do something else. What she's afforded him is the opportunity to choose another lane. And retiring was just the wrong word. You know what I mean? My actual thoughts on that is that there's ego placed in that. But, that's another conversation for another day. But you know how breadwinners be having egos. So women and men become susceptible when they become breadwinners. Ego kicks in and they say some stuff that sometimes you look at them like, you crazy. So, yes, the word retiring shouldn't have been used, right? She should just say, listen, because he's allowed me to do this, I've been able to do this, and now he can choose whatever he wants to do now. If he wants to stay in the force, he can stay in it. If he wants to leave it, he wants to leave it. But it was an ego thing to say, I'm retiring my husband. It's like, why? Because you're taking the plaudits for giving him the opportunity, rather than just saying, no, we had a plan. We stuck to a plan. He now can do what he want to do. I can do what I want to do. You know what I mean? But if any ladies out there and you want to work your ass off like a mule in this world, I'm happy to sit back and do my YouTube. Oh, I am happy. You know what? I will do videos with the baby on my shoulder, patting that baby, doing a whole panel for 3-4 hours. No problem at all. All right. So if you're out there and you want a man that wants to sit back and allow you to just be, just to win, by all means, listen, I will offer the emotional encouragement. I will offer the good D. I'll pray for you. I'll lay the good God Lord's hands upon you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to be there for you. Okay. So you don't have to worry about the things behind the scenes. You know what I mean? Maybe the cooking, I might have to employ a chef and you can pay for that as well. But, that other aspect, you know what I mean? Everything else, I got you. I'll do the laundry. I can do the ironing. You know what I mean? I do all that kind of stuff. You want to clean the bathroom? I'll do that. Kitchen. I love a good clean kitchen, by the way, as well. So don't play with me. But, if you're looking for that, ladies, reach out to me. Okay? Yes, Johan.
No, I was just going to say, are we trying to create a difference between being in a position where the provision of the household does not depend on the man anymore and it depends on the woman, versus a man leaving his job and going home and sitting at home for good and being a stay-at-home dad? Because I think that those are two different things, because when the provision, bringing the money home and all that, does not rely on you and you don't have to bear that responsibility anymore, meaning you and your wife have a conversation and saying, okay, you don't have to worry about the mortgage anymore. I got this. You don't have to worry about this anymore. I got that. So if we're talking about that aspect of things, because my wife has a stable income because she's on a TV show or she's doing whatever she's doing, and I just decide to okay, I won't be a cop anymore and I can just coach kids in South LA in that position, that's fine. Now, the way that we announce it also, I just wanted to say, it don't matter to me if it's announced in the way that she did it. But essentially, I don't think I can do it. I just wanted to redefine again that term about retiring someone, because I feel like us men, Sean and Trey, and we kind of went to the whole way about how she did it rather than the meaning behind the whole thing about retiring your husband. So yeah, but just wanted to throw it out there.
No, that's good. Yeah, that's good. Okay, let's get back on course, because we're talking about finances and we are talking about the divorce. And it was a good conversation. I enjoyed the detour as well. So I want to ask a question. Obviously you guys have shared your experiences in terms of being divorced and coming on the other side. I want to ask this question: does your understanding of love, has it changed since you got divorced? So have you had a different perspective on what love is since you got divorced? You know what I mean? I would love to know some perspectives if that's something that's happened, if there's a different perspective you've come into. V sat up, so I'm going to go V straight away. So V, talk to me. Is there a different understanding of love since you've been divorced?
Most definitely. I have a different understanding of love. It's really crazy. I think once I got divorced, I actually became more patient and kind of accepting people and who they are and letting everybody be their authentic self, and then deciding if you want to deal with that person. I feel like I was younger before, so I had more fairy tale thoughts of love or what love was supposed to be. But like I said, being older, going through the marriage, going through the whole process, it definitely made me more open to different things and different people and different types of experiences. So yeah, it definitely changed what I think love is. Definitely did.
Love that. Anyone else want to jump in there for me? Have you got a different understanding now of love since you've been divorced? Go for it.
I don't know about a different understanding. I know for me, I didn't want. I'm still a believer in love. I didn't want what happened in my marriage to poison me for the next person. Now, what did change was, at least for myself, I knew what and what not to take anymore. Putting yourself in certain situations, you kind of learn for yourself, you know what? All right, don't do this again, or don't start taking this type of abuse again. That's pretty much what I learned from that. Okay, you know, yeah, somewhat to what V was saying, I learned a lot more about myself than anything. You know, I learned some new limits, and I learned, yeah, probably not to go near those limits, especially when you can see it coming. Like, we ain't going down this road, or at least to speak up more. But like, you know what, I have an issue. I want to discuss it. So,
Go for it, Kay.
I could say that I learned to be by myself. So I learned to love myself. So I had a long period. So it was like a 10-year period before I even like really thought about, entering into another relationship or anything. So once I was comfortable with myself, it's amazing when you learn to love yourself and you know that you can make it on your own, you can love yourself, you can do things on your own. So when you in that next relationship, you are an amazing person. I can say that word amazing now. Like, I'm going to make my next husband an amazing wife because I learned a lot. I reflected on the things that I experienced in my marriage. I want to piggyback off of what Winter said. I did counseling. I, worked on self. So again, I looked at other relationships that were not healthy, and I took away, okay, what did they do? And the relationships that were healthy, I also looked at those as well. So I think when you separate, you should take that period to be by yourself, to get to know yourself, to heal, and get to a new place. So I think I am an awesome lover now, a very good communicator. It's all by the grace of God. So that's it.
Thank you. Anyone else want to answer this? Have we got a different understanding of love since you came into divorce? Yes, Sid, go for it.
I think it's not a greater understanding or it's just a different understanding of basically showing up in the next relationship and marriage, and also recognizing what I really need in the other partner as well. And like I said, I'm married again, and he has great patience and kind of, as I say, calms me down. But I was able to be present in a different way for him. So as Kay said, counseling and basically coming into this relationship differently so I don't possibly make the same errors or miss a red flag or don't recognize a yellow flag, when it's presented. But definitely I didn't close myself off at all, but definitely have a different view on relationships, because I wasn't expecting to get married again at all, but did happen.
Thank you, Sid. Anyone else want to jump in? Different idea of love, or have you got the same idea of love? Maybe you got an idea of love. Who knows? Yes, go for it.
Yeah, no, I think that, and it wasn't at the end of my marriage that I realized that. It was during the marriage that I realized that it takes more than love to make a marriage successful. And as much as love is important and it's a key component, you need wherewithal, you need focus, you need the ability to continue to evolve and grow with each other, right? And some aspects of that are love, but it's not all love. So, those are some of the things I kind of learned because, sometimes we have this notion of what marriage is until we're in it. And then we realize some of the things that, takes it to maintain and keep a long lasting marriage.
I think for me, after my marriage, one of the things that I've learned, as we mentioned already, that love is not enough. Understanding your partner or your spouse or the person that you with childhood is also very important, because as we come together in the household and we become married, we essentially are expressing our younger self in some ways. There's a way that we celebrated holidays when we were with our families, or the way that we were cared for. So like having that understanding about like things that our spouse was essentially like considering as important, not as important, triggers, no triggers, things like that is something that I should have learned before I got married. Because when love is not enough, understanding and knowledge would take you there. And if you are now pursuing that knowledge of your spouse, then you're getting lost into not just feeling love. And then you are using word like we grew apart. Because when you are married, the Bible says, the love dwell in the heart of knowing. So when you love someone, you tend to want to get to know them every day, right? And when we stop wanting to do that, then we are not necessarily able to uncover all the layers of our spouses. Because if you meet your spouse at 45, you don't really know what their childhood or their teenage years were looking like when they were in the teen years. And sometimes what they're telling you is not enough. And you have to kind of ask the right questions, spend time with people in their life to be able to understand, why Sean, when he wakes up in the morning, doesn't want to talk to people until 11 o'clock, So things like that. He may give you an explanation, but I can be a different explanation, It's only this year that I realized that because I was quote unquote bullied by my sisters, I had an unhealthy relationship with women leadership in my life. Even if it was coming from a lovable place, I was always on the defensive as soon as a woman who essentially was supposed to be following me was giving me guidance, because I was automatically thinking as soon as she's taking over, she's going to mistreat me like my sister did. My sisters did, So understanding those things could have saved a lot of trouble for me and people in my life and the person I was married to.
Real spit right there. Love that. Who hasn't spoken on this? I think Winter, you last one hasn't answered.
I
Idea
would definitely.
of love.
I don't think I've spoken, but I would definitely say my idea of love has not changed, but how I show up in love has. And I can say that because I'll take my first marriage, for instance. I was cheated on, and I don't think anyone would ever fault me for choosing to move forward in my life after I had been cheated on and there were children created as a result of that infidelity. However, I always say how you heal is your responsibility. And so in reflecting on our marriage as a whole, I remember calling him after we divorced and I apologized to him. And it kind of caught him off guard. And he was like, you don't owe me an apology. I said, I'm not apologizing for your infidelity. I'm apologizing for the times where I was disrespectful, the times where I didn't compromise, the times where I was actually just a spoiled brat and was used to being a princess, in my dad's house, and carried that princess behavior over into a marriage. And being young wasn't an excuse, because, we can all learn and grow. And I was not willing to, because I thought I was perfect. Those were things that I had to course correct if I ever wanted to move forward and be married again. And so I would say it has changed the way I show up in my relationships. It's changed the way that I interact with men in general. It's made my relationships or friendships with men more fulfilling. Even though we're not romantically involved, it allows for me to create safe space for them to hold me accountable. Because I think so often when women go so long without being in a relationship, we almost have difficulty relating to men and allowing a man to hold us accountable, or, just being able to pour into us or speak into us the way that I feel like husbands are called to in marriage. So I definitely have grown as a person. My second marriage taught me how religious I was, and it definitely stripped away my religious thought process, not my relationship, but the religiousness of it all. It has taught me to slow down, and it has taught me to trust my discernment. I can introspectively, go back and say, Winter, you knew something was off. You should have listened to it. And this is literally the marriage that should have never happened. So I had to take accountability for that. And so now it's enabled for me to show up differently. Even going through this season where people are witnessing me dating again, the fans have gotten so excited. Well, the first thing they want to do is put me in a wedding dress. And I'm like, oh, no. Winter is taking her time. I'm dating. Let's be clear. You will not rush me down anybody's aisle. I'm doing this on my time frame and what's comfortable for me. And I will not marry anyone else until I see who they fully are in all seasons. So I'm really proud of my growth. I don't feel like love is any different. I feel like the Bible is very clear about what love is and how it should be. But how we show up in that is definitely impacted by trauma and triggers and our lack of healing. And that's something that I've been intentionally working on really collectively for years now. And so I am just intentional about staying in that place of healing myself and letting that healing show up in my friendships until it becomes, a marriage one day.
Oh, Key, were you going to add something, Key?
Something.
Key and then Sean, you can go after. Go for it. You're going to say something.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you, Kojo, for putting this panel together, because divorce is hard. And so I did a panel about divorce, life after divorce, or whatever. And people jump in comments, or people have something to say. People don't just wake up and say, I want to get divorced. Divorce is expensive. It's a headache. It's timely. So a lot of times when people, throw out scriptures and stuff, people don't wake up just saying they want to get divorced. You don't know if there's abuse going on in their house. You don't know what that person is going through or what type of situations, because everybody don't have to share and they're not required to share. So the Bible, quoters and thumpers, if you want to quote scriptures, I want to make sure you're living your life scripture to scripture, to make sure you're not lying, you're not doing all those things. Because again, people don't wake up. You don't know what it took for us to get here where we're at today. So I don't need anyone to quote scriptures. It's just weird how people don't create safe spaces for people that have been divorced, because again, no one wakes up and say they want to be divorced. You don't know the details. I'm sure everyone has a story that they're sharing on this panel. Baby, you don't know. So I just think people should just be kind to those people that are divorced. And again, it's how many 6 people in here sharing their stories. Just listen, be nice, be kind, and just share, give us some love.
And to add to that, one thing people also have to be mindful is that in some states in America, your spouse can divorce you without your consent and without you even having to sign anything if you have no kids, no assets together. So you don't know people's story. You really don't know like the background of that. Like, for example, for me, I got to serve the divorce paper. And then I went to mediation. And then the next time I just got a letter from the judge saying I was divorced. Never had the chance to like sit down and have a conversation with her or whatnot. I was divorced. So, and that's in the state of Colorado. So that also is another thing to think about. But I appreciate you saying that. Yeah.
And to, Kia, you said it so eloquently, because I was going to say it a little differently, because I was already starting to feel it based on some comments that I'm seeing scroll across, here. And, Winter, you talked about this in your either lives on IG or on your own Instagram channel, on your own YouTube channel. We just need to be cautious about over spiritualizing everything, right? The Bible is a guide. And the scriptures are there for our edification. Trust me, most, if not all of us here are believers in some capacity. But, I think as believers, we ought to be more concerned about the log in our eye before we look at the splint in someone else's. So if that's the scripture you want to weigh into, I would weigh and lean more towards that. Versus telling me what I ought to be doing or anybody else on this panel ought to be doing, or how we are not aligned with God. Because I can tell you, and I can speak confidently on this panel about my divorce now because of what God has released from me, right? The guilt and the shame of divorce. Because if anybody entered into divorce, understanding those vows and taking it on, it was me. Right. And if I had my way, I'd be divorced. I wouldn't be divorced today. But God had a different plan. And yes, I say God. So I think we just need to be really, really cautious about what we spew out to other people. And when it comes to love, yes, it does take more than love. It takes more than your diehard belief in the Lord Jesus Christ to hold your marriage together. It takes two people who want to be married and want to be together. And if one of them does not, then you're not going to be together. Or if those two, for whatever reason, can't be healthy together, if those two aren't edifying God in their marriage, then what is them staying married doing? It's doing nothing. It's actually setting those two people back even further than they should be. So just be cautious. I think that, it's super important that when you hear people tell their stories, before you come with advice, just listen. 2 ears, 1 mouth. That's what we have. Sometimes it's just listen. All of us got here in our own free time to tell our stories. Maybe you could just listen to us. And if you have a question, ask a question, right? But the judging, it doesn't sit well, and it just gets tired. It's tired and it's actually toxic, because it's what keeps people held and bound down. And I could tell you from somebody who sat in my closet and cried till the day I wanted the day to end, in thinking about my marriage and where the state of it was. It was things like that kept me in it longer than I probably needed to be in it. So just think about that. Think about being a voice of love to somebody, right? Because if you're a believer, you're supposed to be the salt, right? So if you want to preach, take some preaching here. We're the salt and light of the world, right? We're supposed to edify. We're supposed to enrich. We're supposed to be the seasoning to other folks. We're not supposed to be tearing down, decaying, breaking down, making people feel guilty or shameful for the things that they have done, right? So if you are a stone, dyed-in-the-wool believer, enrich. Take that love that you think we need to have in our marriage and give it to me, because maybe I need it. Maybe because I was so depressed that I couldn't even imagine what life would be without the woman that I said my vows to, right? Lift me up in that. But don't judge me and don't judge anybody else for what they had to do, because you don't know the story. And I'll end it there.
Anyone else want to add while we're there?
Shad. I mean, it's just like I said, because you never know who's in the comments or who's watching or reading the comments, and they may be at the beginning stages, the stage where you just, like you said, crying all day. You can't, figure it out. So good word, Sean, and everyone else that spoke.
No, I appreciate that, Sean. I appreciate Key as well. And this is meant to be a safe space, so that's the reason why this wasn't a debate. It wasn't someone's wrong. It's people sharing their experiences, and we want to make it safe because, like I said, you ladies and gents have shared eloquently your experiences, and it's also for anybody who comes in who might also be in that same place. I know we've talked quite lightly. I'm sure there are some probably darker moments people have had, and we haven't really touched on those moments where, especially if you come from a religious background, there's a lot of darker moments, especially with the fact that the religious aspect to the guilt that you feel, other people who are, in your faith, maybe feel about the way you're going to do what you're going to do, so there's a lot of pressure for anybody who chooses, to quote unquote divorce. And this is why we want to create that safe space so that people can share, so that people can learn. I want to learn. I want to listen. I want to be able to gain experience, because it's not easy. And we can only have empathy when we begin to understand people's plights. And I'll be honest with you, I'll share something with you guys. I remember in my naivety, this is why I think probably I gave that person a little bit more time to try and calm down, is because in my naivety, when I first got saved, I remember I had a girl that I knew, and they were having a debate about getting remarried, right? And would if I was a pastor, would I remarry them? And I was like, nah, because the Bible tells us we shouldn't remarry. So why would I do that, right? Now I said that without actually really studying the scriptures, and this is the thing that's annoying sometimes about people who don't read their scripture, right? I said that in my naivety. I said that in my lack of knowledge, even. So there's a lot of people that will say things about situations without actually studying it. So, I just find anybody out there, before we do jump down the bandwagon, especially for us who are Christians, and open up the word of God, I always ask them, can you give us contextually what that means? Because oftentimes when people give a viewpoint, it is coming from a narrow perspective, because if it wasn't, you'd have approached it in a different way. So you know, I think importantly, you know, we have to be able to interpret correctly, and we do that through the lens of love. So if anybody out there is giving their point of view, just do it in the point of love, you know, just do it in the point of love. And secondly, you can remarry. Okay, so just put that there, but we can discuss another time from the Bible perspective. But Jesus said it for us already. Okay, so, but no worries. But I do have another question. I know we've got like probably about another 15 minutes, because I think I'm gonna break about 2.5 minutes, 2.45. And I'm trying to keep it under these 3 hours, guys. Okay, you know, y'all got things to do. Okay. So my question here I have is my question is, once you got to the stage of divorce, and it's gone through, etc., or if it's going through in a sense, did you ever feel like you'll be able to love someone else the same way? Did you ever feel like you'll be able to love someone else? Or do you even feel like you can love someone else if that's current for you, if it's still going through it right now? Did you ever feel like you can love someone else? Did you feel like you were going to be able to open your heart again? I guess it's more of a question of where you are at currently. If you feel like you can love someone else again, or you feel like you could give that love to someone else, I guess I want to kind of get that understanding as well, you know, if that's a thing for you guys, you know. So could you love someone else? Did you feel like you could give that love to someone else? Did you feel like your heart was open to that after you divorced? Elsie, why are you smiling like that, Elsie? Why are you smiling like, girl? Talk to me, Elsie. What are you saying?
I'm smiling because I was, you know, like Steve Harvey said, got a bus schedule. I was dating. I was, you know, after my divorce, paperwork filed, signed by a judge, off to the races. But after probably, I think, a year or so of dating, I met my current husband, and he was he had a goal. He said, no, this is, you know, you're meant to be somebody's wife. You're meant to be my wife. And he stated his purpose, and he stated what he wanted in our life together. So for me, I wasn't even thinking that. I wasn't there. I wasn't even, I didn't even know I was ready or prepared. But I calmed down and listened to him. And counseling, again, we spoke. I'm like, okay, I need to hear what your vision is. What do you see? And can we help fulfill each other's purpose? And I guess in me sitting and his patience and the person he is, it allowed me to be open again to the possibility of marriage, to the possibility of, you know, being a wife again and having that man pour into you. Because, you know, as you know, I learned at the seat of the Dark Arts Masters, and it's hard hanging that jacket up, you know, on the coat rack. But when you find that person who can speak to you in a manner you can hear, you certainly will be open to being married again, to loving again, and allowing yourself to be vulnerable again and open up, you know, to the possibilities. It's been great. We've been married since 2017. So first marriage was 13 years. I could have been jaded. I could have been not, you know, wanting to do this again. But he had the patience. He had the patience.
Love that, Elsie. Yeah, anyone want to jump in and say, you know, did you think you could give love a second chance? Yes, Kay.
So, honestly, I wasn't looking or thinking that it would, you know, happen, because I was so focused on getting my life together, finances, getting just my life, you know, together overall. However, they always say when you go looking, you don't find, you're doing too much. And so when it's your time, when you are ready, I do believe that you can find love again. And I genuinely, I'm gonna announce, to the world that I feel like I found, love. So I'm happy, it's just one of those things where when you don't go looking, you find new opportunities. Kojo, come back. So, yes, I do think, and I think when you're authentic, when you're true to yourself, it's a beautiful thing. And that's why, I said I would be willing to, get married again. I don't look at the first marriage as it happened. You learn, you let it learn. So, yes, I do think you can open your heart and love again. So now I was keeping it a secret, but yeah, I do think you can love again.
Thank you, Kay. Appreciate that. Yeah, love that. I'll stop flirting now. Yeah, go. Anyone who wants to go next? Who would like to take up the baton? Do you think you could do love again? Yo's going. Okay, Yo, go for it.
Yeah, I guess.
Yo.
Yeah, I guess somebody had to, right? No, I think you can love again because I believe love is a choice, and dating is generally the process where we're collecting all the data to make that choice. And we can definitely love again. And for me, I think I'd be ready to love again one day. And I think there's definitely like hope for that for sure. I'm single right now. And so that's not necessarily something I've been thinking of, but I honestly can say that you can definitely love again, and you can definitely find somebody who's giving you hope in the future, as long as you are sharing the same vision like Elsie's husband did. And generally that helps us in the dating process, making the decision about opening up. Because once you get married, generally trust is something that's like doesn't come easy. Once you get married and divorced, the trust is generally like something that doesn't come as easy with strangers or new people that want to walk into your life, because you understand the pain of somebody walking out. So you're essentially evaluating like, okay, how much do I want to invest in that person? And if they're walking out of my life, how much pain am I going to experience again? And loving and trying, stats don't say that it gets better. It actually gets worse, right? Because first marriage, 50%, second, 62, third, 74. So it doesn't get better the more you do it. I think it's just a matter of like understanding that love is something that you have to make a decision and give it a try. And hopefully it is a lifetime love that you get to experience until your last day. And that's, I think, what we're hoping for on this channel. So, yeah.
Yo, go for it, Winter.
I consider myself a hopeful romantic. So I have been through it. I really have, but it's never, for whatever reason, dampened my belief that love is out there, not just for everyone, but for me. So I think I've always just been very positive about it. I do think the trust is definitely difficult, especially in my situation where I had a ton of infidelity. So I, took those years to really focus on myself and go through therapy, because that was really, really tough. But now it's just more so really taking my time. And I often say, I won't go down the aisle again until it's with my best friend. Like, friendship really has to be the root, because I think that is what drives true companionship in your older years. And I do want someone I can just experience and do life with. So I would say that the way I date these days it's much differently, and I advocate more for myself, whereas I don't feel like I've always done that in the past. And I do advocate and don't have any fear of moving on if I feel like where I am or who I'm dating is not the best for what I know I see and what I'm praying for. So yeah, I think it's just more so healing. I think the more healed you become, the more open you become. I'm as probably more open than I've ever been. I'm just intentional about taking my time so I make the right choice. And I do think when you're not looking for it is the best. I'm not pressed at all. I'm not pressed. When it happens, it happens. But in the meantime, I'm focused on enjoying dating, enjoying my life, and really focusing on my kids and myself is a priority, and enjoying kind of this sweet spot that I'm in my career growing. So yeah, I think I've always been, that's probably my downside. I'm the person that thinks of the glamorous when it comes to love. I can see the best in almost anything, until you show me otherwise. But yeah, I think that's a healing thing for sure. I'm just in a healed place where I just A, always believe in it, but B, I know it's out there.
Thank you, and I appreciate it. Yes. Is that V or Sean? No, go for V. Go for V then.
Yes, I definitely know I'm capable of loving again. I have loved stronger than I loved in that relationship since. So I know I'm capable of doing it, and I'm forever hopeful that when the right time comes, it will happen. I will get married again.
Thank you, V. Appreciate it. Sean?
Yeah, no, I definitely am open to love again. And I had to get there because after, or during, my divorce and separation, I felt like I couldn't love anybody like I loved her. So yeah, it took some time to get to that place, but 100%. And, I really would love to be married for sure.
Love that. Thank you. All right, cool. I think one or two questions. I think they had a question for you, Winter, here. Said, Winter, question for you. My husband cheated and had a set of twins outside of your marriage. Our marriage, sorry. I was willing to forgive and work on it, but he couldn't stop cheating. Did it really break you? It's a question for real. So
Tina, first off, I'm sorry that you experienced that. I often say that infidelity is it's destructive in more ways than people can really calculate. I think we surface talk about infidelity. We don't talk about the true spiritual, mental, and emotional impact that infidelity has, not just on the spouse that's been cheated on, but even the children that may be impacted. For me, I was the same. So when I first found out about the initial child outside of our marriage, it was actually by our nanny. And I was pregnant at the time when I found out. So I honestly did not think that you're talking about a crazy year. Like, I often wonder how I made it through because it was devastating. And devastating because I was also with child, trying to get through the pregnancy, but also deal with the aftermath of everything that was going on was challenging. I still made a decision to stay. And I say that because my self-esteem was so in the garbage after learning of the infidelity, because you question yourself as to how and why and when. And it's just so much that goes into it that I was not ready to leave. Fast forward, I want to say it would have been 3 years after that, we got served by a sheriff at the door. I answered, and I thought it was the child support papers for the nanny, and it was for a completely different woman, which is how I learned that there was a second child. And at that point, I knew that our relationship was in a pretty dire place. We separated for a little while, and we decided to give it another try. The straw that broke the camel's back for me was that it was taking a physical toll on my body. I ended up hospitalized for 2 weeks on my deathbed, about to leave 4 kids behind with no mother. And my prayer to God was that if he got me out of that hospital healthy and whole, that I would not only forgive for the sake of my health, but I would forgive for the sake of the ability to have the strength to move forward if that is what I chose to do. I ended up filing for divorce about 6 months after my exit from the hospital. And so, yes, did the betrayal take a toll? Absolutely. It almost took me out of here. And that's because at that point, I was so bitter. I was so angry. And I realized that there was no hope for the marriage to move forward. Essentially, what I had promised God is that I would forgive him for real and I would make an honest effort to try to try to fix the marriage, because I did not want to lose our family. I wanted my kids in a 2-parent household. That's what I signed up for, and that's what I desired. But I said, God, I'm going to give this an earnest try. I'm going to forgive for real. And if he cheats again, give me the strength to move on. And within 6 months, I found out that he was having an affair again, and I filed for divorce. That was my cue to exit stage left. I had fought the good fight. And I knew I had, but at that point, I realized that the cheating was not my problem. It was his. And there had been ample years and time for him to correct it. And it was at the expense of my health that I was sticking around. I knew that it was better off for me to make the decision to move forward. And has it been easy? No, it was not easy. But as the years progressed, life got better and it got actually easier for my kids. And my daughter said to me, her senior year in high school, she said, Mom, I don't know what took you so long. She said, it was absolute hell living in the house with you guys, battling over his infidelity. And she said, life got much more peaceful when you left. And so I think so often we stay for whatever reason, thinking that we're doing the right thing, but it's not always in the best interest of not only yourself, but especially your kids, if there are children involved. We've been able to co-parent beautifully. I wish it was something that was reflected on the show. He's just not public and doesn't want to be filmed. But we've been able to move forward, and our kids have blossomed very well, regardless of our divorce. But it was a long road to get to this point. So I hope that you take the necessary steps to heal yourself. The Bible says, physician, heal thyself. You can't help your situation if you're not healed yourself. Therapy was instrumental for me. It took me going to a non-Christian therapist to be okay with filing for divorce. Every Christian therapist I went to told me to pray through it. And I went to a non-Christian therapist and she said, Winter, I know that you have a relationship with God that guides your choices, but this is toxic and it is literally going to take you out of here if you don't make some really hard and tough decisions. So thanks to her encouragement and support, I was able to find the strength that I needed to move forward. And life has been amazing since. So do what is best for you. When there's a breach like infidelity, especially if it's chronic, I mean chronic, unless there is a heart change and a behavior change, I don't know that God advocates for that the way that the church wants to say that he does. So my views are very different because I've lived it, and I should have left 7 years sooner. That's my truth.
Thank you, Winter. I don't know if has anyone else suffered infidelity in a previous marriage. Yo, I know, Yo, you can maybe talk about it and give a
I'm like, nah. But I had a quick question for Winter and maybe anybody else on the panel. I wanted to ask you guys this because I had another relationship after my marriage that did a number on me emotionally and mentally. And in my moment of really recovering or trying to recover from that experience, from that relationship and trying to find healing, I met God with a word where essentially he told me, when I get you out of this pain and you don't feel the pain anymore, I just want you to trust me with your heart again, because I got you out of the first situation. And it was kind of like a moment where I was about to get on a plane. I was heading to Houston. I was praying at the airport with my headphones. And then I just heard that word, and it took me back to my marriage where I had that infidelity. And generally when, as a Christian, people ask us to stand for your marriage and do all that stuff. And I feel like that's what Winter did. But I was going to ask you, did you receive that word about like God asking you to trust him from the second situation? Because when you got out of the first, did he remind you like, hey, we've been through this before? And did you use anything that any skills or any words of encouragement, anything from the first situation to apply to the second? I just wanted to know that because, you know, I literally used that roadmap because he told me like, we've been through this in 2018. It's 2023 right now, 2022 right now. Just remember who I am as your God. So just wanted to ask you if you guys have ever had a word from God that was repeated again about salvation and getting you out of the tunnel.
Absolutely. And in fact, faith and trust was the foundation of why I was able to leave the second time without a second thought, because that was his promise. Have I ever failed you yet? I heard so clearly. And I'm like, no, God, you haven't. And the crazy part is that I had found out about the second situation when I was making the most money ever. Hear me when I say this. I was closing anywhere between $50,000 and $75,000 in a month. And I had to shut it down because of the situation. So that meant I was making no money. And I needed to make money because this now required me to go file for a divorce I hadn't planned on filing for. And that was his word to me when I was praying. He says, have I ever failed you yet? And I'm like, no, God, you haven't. When I tell you not working, I mean, shut it all down, because I needed to go on sabbatical because this was a really serious situation that I was dealing with. I made more money between that sabbatical than I had ever made the months prior in that year. Money was coming from everywhere. I was getting checks in the mail randomly, and I saved the stack of checks. I took a picture of it. It was the craziest thing I had ever seen. I had friends literally messaging me and saying, hey, you know, I just sent you a Cash App. And I'm like, a Cash App? And it would be like $1,000 I'm not even joking. Like, it was the craziest thing to me, but I know it was God proving himself, saying, hey, have I ever failed you yet? No, God, you haven't. Sometimes I think when we've gone through traumatic situations that impact us emotionally, especially by way of relationships, I believe the enemy's goal is to get us to become pillars of stone. And God can't do anything with that. It hinders every single area of our life if we are not flexible and willing to be in a position where love is our guide. That is the only way. Jesus is love. He was love. His way was love. So if we go through situations that block our ability to love, then we can't show up in the world as we are authentically meant to as human beings. We can take the believer part out of it. Even non-Christians understand that love is the answer. And so as a believer, how much more when we have the help of the Holy Spirit to lead and guide us as we move forward, do we put ourselves in position that close ourselves off to it? And I can remember when it was like the top of the year, and I didn't even know, like, anyone really knew, but I was at a church and this lady said to me, she said, God said, it's time for you to open your heart. And I just looked at that lady like, do you know what I've been through? And she says, no, God says it's time for you to open your heart because he can't do what he's about to do if it's closed. And I thought she was talking about me moving into another relationship, but literally my life just catapulted. Like the things that I'm doing now, or the spaces and places that I'm in, I would have never imagined a year ago. Like, it literally doesn't make sense. Some of the things that God is doing for me. And I say for me, he's no respecter of person. So if you do it for me, you can do it for anybody. But I'm saying specifically for Winter, it does not make sense. But a lot of that had to do with my ability to open my heart to love and to give love and to receive love. And that's a process, and that's, you know, a healing journey I would encourage you to go on. But, you know, no one is worth what God is able to do in our lives when we are open. And I would ask you to challenge yourself in that. is it worth what God can do on the other side of this? Because I think when we stay in a place where we're not open and we're so fearful and oftentimes just traumatized or triggered by what we've experienced, we just don't always know. It's really scary. But I would encourage you to just say, is it worth what I may be giving up if I'm not willing to be open? And that can be in the form of a new relationship, the right relationship, or just the amazing blessings that God has as a result, because I don't believe that God wastes anything. And there is a reward attached to every single ounce of pain that we endure. And so your pain has a pay date. I teach that often. Your pain has a pay date, but I don't believe you get that pay date until you become open to receiving.
Thank you very much, Winter. Thank you. Oh, someone open the mic. Who wanted to say something?
No, I just wanted to say that this is a testimony about how God is faithful about a lot of things that are happening, because I could feel like in her story, there was a lot of similarity with the conversation we're having on a panel, because as we all move forward with our lives and logging off today, you know, Kiera found love, and congratulations to you about that. Right. And you know, when you married someone, like Sean said, like, you don't just go and say like, okay, I'm going to get divorced. But as a Christian, remembering God's promises as you walking through the wilderness is very important, because when you come out of there, that's where you are able to understand the expectation of a relationship, get your heart and mind prepared for wherever you are going. And I just wanted to be able to like share again how much God is speaking to us when we are going through stuff, and how he's really trying to remind us how surrendering to him can be very life-changing in some ways.
Appreciate it, Johan. Elsa is tormenting me in the chat. Anyone else wanted to add before we bounce off? We've got last 10 minutes, so any additions that's come to mind around this subject, divorce? And yes, Ree, go for it.
No, I was just going to really agree with Winter. Like, when I decided to get my divorce, I really had to sit down and talk to God about getting past the fear and feeling safe to go ahead with it. And I'm so glad I did. Like, I really put my faith. And like you said, blessings come from everywhere. You don't know who's going to help you. You don't know who's going to support you while you're going through the process and situation. And people came through that I would have never thought, you know, cared, would help or anything. And I'm doing way better than I was before. I'm in a way more elevated place than I've ever been in my entire life. So I totally agree with what you're saying.
I would just add to, you know, from all of us, I think one of the unique threads or similar threads really has been just seeking out good counsel. So, you know, I think it's so important, you know, whether somebody is at a crossroads or in a place where they are really feeling torn in their marriage, seek out good counsel. You know, I was fortunate enough to really get some great counsel from my pastor, you know, but listen, sometimes it's not always going to be in the form of another Christian either, because as you've heard from Winter, right, it was someone else. And God can use anyone. God can use anyone to help us. It is just, are you willing to hear and listen and heed the words? So, and I would say also for anybody outside of us, because I think, you know, all of us on the panel, we've migrated past our journey. Some of us, and, you know, for those that were sharing in the comments, you know, some folks really are in the midst of some challenging situations, but know it will get better. You know, trust that it will get better. Take it from us, take it from me. It will get better. And it sounds cliche, but it's not cliche. It will get better. And when you listen to that still inner voice, which is normally the Holy Spirit and it's God speaking through you, it's telling you what you need to do, right? So be comfortable, be confident. Don't let anybody shame you into staying in some place that is not good for you. There is no, you know, I remember days of feeling so torn. I was married, but I was not feeling like I was in a place where I should be, right? And there's nothing like that feeling of when you're out of it to feel like you know that you're where you're supposed to be. So choose you first. And, listen, when you're on a plane, they always tell you, save yourself first. You got to save yourself first before you can save anybody else. And especially for the ladies, I know you think about your kids most often, but you can't be a vessel and a vehicle to your kids if you're struggling to survive and breathe, So for those of you that have kids, you have to save yourself first in order to be better for them, right? And then ultimately, you got to save yourself for you to be the best version of you, because you're not going to be good to anyone, especially yourself, suffocating in a situation that's not good for you.
Anyone got any contributions? V, you look like you're ready to go again. No? Elle said yes. Elle said go for it.
Just to touch on what Winter said about the kids and the kids' perspective, for my kids, they were, I guess, more ready for it than even I knew. The kids are resilient. The kids are observant. The kids are aware, out of the mouth of babes. When I had to sit and basically tell my children, my eldest was, very stoic. He was like, Mom, it's been us for a while. Even though Dad's been here, it's been us for a while. So this isn't going to change much. My little one was a little different because he was like, it's going to change drastically for him in his mind. But again, counseling and just talking to them. Don't just leave the kids out of it. They're going through their own changes. They're going through their own thoughts about what's going on. It's an uncertainty that they haven't experienced. So just talk to them. I have 2 boys. I talk to them, when they were little, like adults. No baby talk. We need to talk about what's going on, and I will listen to your input, and we'll go from there. But don't just stay for the sake of the kids, because it may be hurting them more than you know.
Absolutely. We've got last 5 minutes, so I'll ask a question. What would I mean? You guys already pretty much did it, but I guess obviously just to tie it up, last kind of sentiments you would give somebody who is they're ready to give divorce. They're there, but maybe there's a bit of fear. Maybe they feel like, like I can't do it. The church or whatever. And these are people are genuinely at the end of their line. What would be the kind of advice that you guys would give to that person? What would be the advice you give to that person? Yes, Kay.
My first piece of advice would be to Sean kind of touched on it. Just be careful who you share your business with, because everyone is not there for you. Some people, will give you, they may have good intentions, but sometimes it's not good intentions. So just be mindful who you're sharing with. Make sure it's a trusted person, a person that is, they don't have nothing to gain by giving you the information or their knowledge. As Winter stated, that she seeked help from a counselor that was not a Christian counselor. For me, it was actually my ex's a good friend, and he was like, he broke the bro code. He was like, I'm a minister, so I will be doing a disjustice to God if I didn't tell you leave this mess. And so just make sure you have a good circle to surround yourself with, because there will be nights where prayer is not enough, a church song is not enough. So just make sure you have that person that you can trust with your secret. Because like I said, some people want to see your downfall also. People want to say, with me, people was like, oh, she's going to fall off, this and that. She not going to have this stuff, not knowing that I was the breadwinner, but they was, looking for my demise. So just make sure you have good people in your corner. That's all I just want to share lastly. And keep God the head of your life, because God is the only thing that kept me here. Because I could have caught a case. I want to end on that east side, yeah, and I didn't. So people were surprised that I didn't act the fool, but that's that deliverance, the touch of God, only the touch of God. That's what I said before. I was a whole different person. And that's when you know God has entered the room, when he tell you he got you. And I remember one time I was in my car and he said, "Didn't I feed the birds?" And I was like, "Oh, you got me. Okay." He gave me that scripture. So you never know when that scripture will pop up on you. Stay in your word, just stay connected. So you know when you hear his voice, because when you quiet, he will speak. At 4 o'clock in the morning during my divorce, at 4 o'clock was all the time. I could, baby, but that's like, stay connected to the Lord.
Thank you for that, Kay. Elsid?
I'm not catching a case for anybody. I'm sorry. I like my freedom too much, and not worth it. Not worth it. I'll think about it. For anyone thinking about divorce, when I said earlier I was calm, get legal advice first as well. If you're doing counseling, yes, but if you are contemplating it, you need to have some legal advice and see what the steps are. Because you never know if your actions may hurt you later on during the proceedings. So get some legal advice while you're in counseling, because those next steps, you do not want to falter. You do not want to be, the person going against your best interest when it does come to going to court. I was fortunate enough, we didn't have to go to court. We mutually agreed to everything, signed paperwork, filed it. It was, very little ripples, not no ripples, little ripples. But please get legal advice so that you're not making missteps.
Winter?
For me, I really feel like a lot of people are hasty when making decisions about divorce these days. And one of the things that I feel like helped me heal and really move forward was the first time I exhausted every option. I know that I did my best to try to salvage the marriage if it was possible, and it just was not possible. So I was able to file for divorce with a clear conscience and clean hands. And the second time, very much the same. We exhausted the options. That was a very clear, cut and dry situation. But once again, clean heart and clean hands. You don't want to leave a divorce wondering, did I do everything I could have done to salvage it? Because whether we want to admit it or not, a lot of people leave marriages for very selfish reasons, not because they really wanted to work to save the union. And I think as a believer, if you are a believer, I believe that our first commitment is to honor God and the covenant that we made. So my advice would be to make sure that you are able to walk away with a clean heart and clean hands, and that you know you did what you could do to save the marriage. And that's not possible in every circumstance and situation, but I think it's a lot more possible than people are willing to give it credit for these days. I think we're too quick to pull the trigger. And when you talk about the breaking up of a family, I think divorce should be considered with careful prayer and consideration and counseling and wise counsel. Let me just say that, wise counsel. That may mean your pastor, that may mean someone that's not, like in my case, she wasn't a believer, but she was very helpful in helping me really weigh every option and come up with a real plan if I was going to move forward, either in the marriage or outside of the marriage. And I needed it. Yes, legal advice, even though the first time around we were very amicable and we didn't have to use anything. We just agreed to everything and filed. Second time, a little bit more drama, but thank God for the right attorney that I came out victorious and unscathed. But yes, please do your legal homework, because all of the laws are not created equal, excuse me. So do your homework, make sure you know what you're preparing for, and also make sure you have the right village. I had incredible family and friends that really supported me, and I needed every ounce of it. Because divorce just creates major changes, especially if there are children involved that you don't always know. My kids needed support. I needed support. Get your kids into family counseling. Don't leave them out of it. They go through divorce with you. My daughter was 3, almost 4, not quite 4 when we filed for divorce. And it wasn't until she was 6 years old that we realized she needed to go back into family therapy, because one day she asked me when I was coming back home. And we realized that for 3 years, she thought that I was just on a 3-year vacation from living apart from her dad. And I'm like, no, that's not the way any of this works. So we realized that she needed to go back into therapy to process. And it was very much the same with my youngest son as well. So please make sure you get your kids the support that they need as well when you're going through these life changes, because it's major. And be kind to yourself, forgive yourself, and just expect better.
Thank you, Winner. V?
I mean, everybody hit all of the points. Like, yeah, be careful who you talk to about your situation, because there are some people who are not going to help the situation, and they're setting up for your downfall. Definitely get therapy for sure. I know I got therapy to help me through my process. Also, yes, an amazing lawyer helps, because as amicable as it can be, sometimes it gets ugly when you can least expect it. And yes, forgive yourself, because this is something you felt in your heart that you needed to do. Hopefully, like you said, you exhausted all avenues, you prayed, you did everything you needed to do before you made that decision. And yes, the kids are very important that they understand what is going on, and they know they are not to blame, because kids internalize things. You never know what's running through their minds, what they think is happening. So you have to be very, very careful on how you handle the situation. Yeah.
Thank you, V. Johan?
I would say don't make any permanent decision according to a temporary situation, because I know that when we are considering divorce, we are very emotional and trying to make things work or change it or get rid of the pain. So sometimes it's always important to go after, like we said, wise counsel, and really take your time to really exhaust all the options, because you definitely don't want to underestimate what God can do in your situation. The wife that I was sharing tonight about came back to me 5 months begging me to marry her again, right? So, and I prayed for her to come back about 7 months before, and then I moved on with my life. So now you can call it God, you can call it time, and you can call it whatever. But all I'm just saying is don't underestimate what God can do about your story. Your marriage was not your story. It was just a part of the chapter, and there's another one ahead of you. Marriage is never supposed to be who you are. Remember who you are, remember who God is, and everything else. So, and always make sure that you have good people around you that want to see you succeed. And thanks for having me again, Kojo, tonight.
No problem at all, bro. Sean, last word to say to someone who obviously made me think about divorce, and then you can give us also the benediction in amongst that.
Okay. So, I would say one, as everybody put it so eloquently, right? Really just don't condemn yourself, right? There is no condemnation, so if you're at the crossroads, if you are there, if it's where you feel compelled that that's the direction it's going, do not condemn yourself, right? Things happen for a reason. If it's your fault, part your fault, whatever it is, you can come back from this. There is redemption in God, right? So just don't let the shame tear away at you, because shame is one of the most powerful, if not destructive, emotions that exist. So don't let the shame of your situation, don't let the guilt eat away at you, and know that it does get better. There is another side, and the more that you press forward, the quicker you will be on the other side, right? So, those would be my parting words. What I would say in terms of the benediction, I think, one, just appreciate everybody for being the vulnerability, right? Because God loves a vulnerable heart, because that is what can reach somebody else. Because if not for our stories and the willingness to share, others, may not have access to, a different way or a path to healing. So share your stories with those that it's safe to do so. And as a reminder for all of us, when someone is sharing, it's probably best to, put your two ears together and listen, right? And hear what they have to share and love on them, right? As most of us panelists did when we heard stories, we loved on those of us that are struggling, because there's nothing like the love and comfort when you're going through a challenge. And that's what we need, right? When you're struggling, you're down and out, you're down bad, you need love to uplift you and move you forward, right? And I think, we've got some folks that are single or just in relationships but aren't married. Divorce can be for you too. Divorce is disassociating yourself from a thing or from something. And there may be something in your life that you need to be divorced from, right? Because it isn't serving you well. It isn't healing for you. It is taking you backwards from a path. So consider that, right? Because divorce is sometimes necessary. It's not our go-to. We shouldn't enter into it lightly. However, there are instances when we do need to divorce and separate ourselves from things, people, and places, right, for the betterment of ourselves. So, I'll end it with save yourself. You got to save yourself first in all ways before you can be anything to anybody else. Back to you, Coach.
Yes, thank you, Sean. Thank you, Sid, Johan, Key, V. I appreciate you as well. Great panel today, and thank you guys for being, and ladies as well, for being vulnerable and sharing your experience, and just having respectful dialogue, and bringing different points of view. I'm sure the audience were blessed by the wealth of knowledge and experience and understanding that you guys brought to the topic. So, we're gonna continue such discourse over the next few weeks as well. So I'll think of a topic for next week. I'm not sure what topic was going to come to mind, but we'll think of a topic for next week so we can go again. But thank you again, El Cid, Kay, V, Johan, Sean, because it takes a vulnerable person. It takes a strong person to share their vulnerability. So, audience, thank you again for joining us for Enthralling Conversation. Make sure you guys watch it back. Send this to somebody. Maybe they're going through, a divorce right now or thinking about it. This is a kind of conversation that will uplift, edify, and also just kind of, bring some peace in this time and moment. That look, people have gone through this and have survived, and there is life after divorce. So we appreciate you for joining us today, and this is a special one for our brother Sean, since Deacon came out and said it's not on his watch that y'all gonna talk about some scriptures and not put it in his proper perspective. So I had to play it for him.
Not on my watch. Not on my watch.
That brother said, listen, who said black men don't protect black women? He's here to protect. He's going to show you what a deacon do for the church. All right. So listen, appreciate you, ladies and gents. Thank you for coming out. And we will see you again tomorrow night. We've got the British panel. So we'll be on there for another 2-3 hours as well. About 3 p.m. EST for you guys. No, 4 p.m. EST for you guys. So we'll be having a conversation as well. And then we'll be back on Thursday night for Married at First Sight, and then back on Saturday for Put a Ring on It as well. So, and then the men's panel on Sunday. So actually Saturday I'm not here. I'm hosting a wedding, so no, I'm not here. So Sunday I'm back for the men's panel. But we'll definitely get to talk again soon. All right. So much appreciation, much love. Thank you very much.